I don't care. I'd rather be here in spirit than not at all. A captain doesn't abandon ship.
Every hour you stay here makes it that much more difficult to leave.
Why are you pushing me? I've made up my mind. I'm staying here.
The cortical stimulator is working. I'm getting a weak pulse.
She's coming back.
I'll use cordrazine along with the stimulator.
What was that? What happened?
What do you mean?
I saw Tuvok and Chakotay and the doctor.
Here?
No, it was different, as though I were looking up at them.
An hallucination like the others.
I didn't feel like the others. I didn't see myself. I was looking up at them. That's the real me, isn't it? Lying on the ground on that planet, dying. And this is the hallucination. This isn't real.
More denial. You're only making it harder on yourself.
You're trying very hard to convince me to come with you. Why is that? If what you're saying is true, why not let me come to the decision on my own?
I'm trying to spare you unnecessary pain.
My father would never act like this. He always believed I had to learn my own lessons, make my own mistakes. He never tried to shield me from life. Why would he try to shield me from death? You're not my father. I could be imagining you, but I don't think so. You have such a specific agenda. You're determined that I go with you somewhere. Who are you?
I'm trying to help you. Stop fighting me.
Are you an alien being of some kind? Is that it?
Her eyes are open.
Vital signs are responding. Blood pressure 60/30.
But the entity is still inhabiting her cerebral cortex, impeding your treatment.
Catherine, hang on. We're bringing you back. Just fight a little longer.
Direct synaptic stimulation might drive out the alien presence.
I was right. I heard Tuvok and Chakotay and the doctor. You're an alien. You created all these hallucinations, haven't you?
This is what my species does. At the moment just before death, one of us comes to help you understand what's happening, to make the crossing over an occasion of joy.
And what is that?
Our matrix, where your consciousness will live. I was being truthful when I said it was a place of wonder. It can be whatever you want it to be.
Then why didn't you tell me this from the beginning? Why pretend to be my father?
Usually people are comforted to see their loved ones. It makes the crossing over a much less fearful occasion. I've done this many times, but I've never encountered someone so resistant.
Something's happening. The alien presence is getting stronger again.
Fight it, Catherine. Fight it just a little longer.
I'll have to try a thoron pulse.
My people are telling me to fight. They're trying to save me.
They're trying out of desperation. It's hopeless.
You're the one who sounds desperate. I don't get the feeling you're trying to make me comfortable. You're only interested in my agreeing to come with you.
Because it's inevitable.
And you don't strike me as any kind of good Samaritan. You're more like a vulture, preying on people at the moment of their death when they're most vulnerable.
I've waited for you. I've been patient.
But your patience is wearing thin. What's the real reason you want me in that matrix? Somehow I don't think it has anything to do with everlasting joy.
You must go with me.
If you could force me to go, you'd have done it already. You need me to agree, don't you? I have to go voluntarily.
Wouldn't that be better than standing here in this endless debate?
Let me tell you this. We can stand here for all eternity, and I will never choose to go with you.
You're in a dangerous profession, Captain. You face death every day. There'll be another time, and I'll be waiting. Eventually, you'll come into my matrix. And you will nourish me for a long, long time.
Go back to hell, coward.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Crazz Files podcast with Adam and Garth. It's Thursday the 27th of August 2015. This podcast is available from iTunes and you can also get it from podomatic.com. But you can go to our website as well, which is crazzfiles.com, always CRAZZ, and a whole ton of stuff going up there. Most of our older podcasts going up and our new ones always displayed on the front page. You can download, subscribe, check out all the latest stories going up on the website. And as always, Thanks for listening to our podcast each week. Okay, Garth, we are plugged in and ready to go for another week.
Yes.
A few Skype issues there, as we do, but we'll just keep pushing through. But we are definitely ready to tumble down the rabbit hole today with our guest. And it's been a long time coming, Garth. So this sort of subject is something we've talked about a long time. So today we're joined by Wayne Bush, and Wayne's going to come in with us now, and it should be a very interesting show, and I hope our listeners out there enjoy it. Wayne, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you, Adam. Thanks for inviting me to be on your podcast show.
It's I'll just mention your website. It's a great website, and we'll mention that throughout. It's trickbythelight.com. And it's how souls are programmed to go to the moon, sun at death to be recycled as energy, new theory of life and death, how to win the game of life and escape the prison planet Earth, which is a matrix illusion that we dream. All our listeners know that Garth and I have been constantly going on about this stuff. We had Barry Eaton on about the afterlife, death experience, human death experience, what happens to us when we die, what's the difference between reality and a dream, it's all worth exploring and talking about. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, Wayne, but, you're a great researcher, and you've got a hell of a lot of material to go through today.
I got some new material too.
Yeah, some new material. It's deep stuff, it is, and you've taken years of research and studying, and you've put it all into your own research, really, and you've come up with a great way of putting it out for people to sort of digest and understand. But it's human life. I understand people want to just sort of go through life and watch TV and work and be shoveled into a grave and not ask any questions. Some people have an atheist outlook. I understand all of that, but we're just here. We're not always going to claim that we're right. We're just all researching and trying to come up with answers and find out what the hell's going on, because Garth and I always say, Wayne, that, we always feel that something is feeding on us, that something's wrong here. Your human instincts, your intuition, you can feel it, that something's happening. You can see it in the TV, you can feel it all around you in this life. And, we all die. It's coming to all of us. No one's spared from this. The human body breaks down, and this part of us, this soul, releases from the body. But where does it go? What happens? And we were asking this ages ago, Wayne, right. Has the afterlife been set up in an almost web to catch our souls as well? Because, it's something that is worth talking about. And are we recycled continuously back into the earth, which implies that something's feeding on us, of course. So, let's get into your research about this today. And we don't want to scare people, because near the end of this we might go through some ideas that people can use in a more positive manner. Maybe we can find out with you about your research on how the hell to get out of this. But we don't want to worry and be fearful, because I think obviously these entities, Wayne, archons, demiurge, demons, devils, whatever you want to call them, feed on human fear. And this energy, which makes a lot of sense when you look at all the world wars. Garth and I talk about that a lot as well, and the constant fear and, agony and suffering, induced into the human species. So, it's all worth, talking about and going into. And, And I think people will get a lot out of this today, Wayne, because you put a hell of a lot of research and time and effort into what you're doing. So, great work, and it's good to have you here. So let's get started.
Thank you. Well, thanks for that great introduction. And a lot of my new material does touch on the afterlife setup, as you mentioned. And I think I do have some answers, and I can put it in a presentation that is not as fearful. I mean, I've got a lighter side to it also. So before we begin, I'd like to say that I don't pretend to know the truth for sure. I don't have definitive proof, but I rely on evidence, so please preface everything I say with I believe or I think. Also, I'm not a polished speaker. I'm a computer programmer, so I ask that you please bear with me. I'm going to go from notes so as to not miss any important details. A lot of the presentation is going to be the same as I did for Greg Carlwood, but I have a lot of new research that I hope to include that is very important. For instance, I met a near-death experiencer who met what many would describe as God or the devil, and he had to agree to an extensive contract before returning to Earth. I've also been in contact with researcher Chris Hall, who is
Yes.
If I start right there.
Are you
again, recording right now?
Yeah, we got Skype problems, so we'll push through, but continue, please, my friend.
Okay. Yeah. For instance, I met a near-death experiencer who met what many would describe as God or the devil, and he had to agree to an extensive contract before returning to Earth. I've also been in contact with a great researcher, Chris Hall, who shared a lot of good info with me regarding Gnostic and Sumerian texts. So my website, trickedbythelight.com, is in response to the popular notion that there is a tunnel that one goes through when one dies to be with the loving light. It is a familiar meme now and is even used as a source for jokes in movies. I believe it's a trick and that our souls are lured to the light by alien beings on the moon and used as a source of energy for themselves and possibly the sun. The theory is concerned with how to win the game of life and escape the prison planet Earth, which is an illusionary matrix that we dream. The theory of the website is that souls on Earth live in a holographic prison and are being farmed as an energy source. At death, souls are lured to the light, the moon, by beautiful lights and sounds, or by entities posing as loved ones in order for our energy to be harvested. There is some kind of tower or technology on the moon which enables this. The souls' minds are scrambled and the souls are contained inside the moon for a period until they are transferred to the sun as a fuel or energy source. This most likely occurs during a total eclipse. Souls' memories are wiped clean, bleached or dyed by the light and are recycled to be reincarnated or reincarcerated back to Earth as a food source that is farmed by entities, archons, aliens, demons, which feed off our energy. So we get mooned and our SOL shit out of luck. The soul has died or been bleached and is released and sent to Earth where it is recycled and reincarnated or reincarcerated, where they feed off the negative emotions generated from our stressful lives as slaves imprisoned by our body cells and our chemical compounds. We're also kept here by gravity. We're tricked for it as a game, the game of life for the human race. There's a mystery to life. From the minute we're born as babies, we have an amnesia or complete ignorance as to where we came from and why we're here. Something's wrong. I mean, contributing to this ignorance are secrecy and lies. If there's a God, then why does everything die, break down, have disease? Creatures eat each other just to survive, and the whole problem of evil. I believe the answers can be seen in the axioms that art imitates life and vice versa. As above, so below, and God created us in His image. So concepts such as humor, entertainment, games exist here, so must also with the source. So now for the good news. The good news is life's a game, and games are fun and for our amusement. The human race is obsessed with games. Olympic World Games, big ball games, big game hunters, virtual reality computer games, board games, game pods, game shows. The game of life is one of the best-selling board games of all time. And The Sims, a video game in which you create your own people to put in your simulated world of Sim City, won Game of the Year. Like the concept of reincarnation, we often give the characters new lives as they advance from level to level, and attributes such as health and karma. Even today, we now have virtual reality technology, and video game graphics are becoming more lifelike with each version released. Pretty soon, the graphics will become indistinguishable from real life. Scientists keep finding smaller and smaller particles as they zoom in on the resolution of the world we live in, only to be hindered by Planck's constant. Quantum scientists have discovered that particles only behave as particles when they are observed and function as waves when not observed, as if the function in the machine code is only called upon when needed. So it's very likely that our world is a computer-simulated reality. Parity, P-A-R-I-T-Y, is a computer term used as a checksum digit to check for an error. The inside joke is that this is all just a parody, P-A-R-O-D-Y, or a mocked-up simulation of a real situation. Technology keeps advancing along according to Moore's law. More and more movies and TV shows are depicting simulated worlds experienced from a pod. Blockbusters such as the highest grossing movie of all time, Avatar, Alien, The Matrix, Stargate, The 13th Floor, Existence, Surrogates, and The Island. In the beginning, mainframe computers used to fill an entire room. Then in the 1980s, Apple and IBM developed desktop computers, soon to be followed by laptops. We now routinely surf the web using handheld devices, and corporations such as Google are currently working on devices that will be embedded into glasses or clothing. Extrapolating this trend, it is only a matter of time until we merge with machine. Some pets and people already have biochip technology implanted. Leading scientists such as transhumanist Ray Kurzweil discuss the coming event called a singularity. Quantum physicists also discuss ideas such as a holographic or fractal universe and a universe with 12 or more dimensions. So if we are that close to creating simulated worlds ourselves, what is the probability that we are already living in a simulated world or subworlds? With the invention of computers, the internet, and the cybernetic human plus goals of transhumanists, it seems as though we are headed toward being yet further trapped down another level or layer within the labyrinth. We, Game Boys, live in a Dreamcast from Game Pods and a PlayStation. You have all these reality TV shows, but it's likely all just a dream. Olympic Dreams, The American Dream, you have the Dream Girl, the Dream Car, Dream Machine. We're living the dream. You have DreamWorks Pictures, Sega Dreamcast, and we dream every night when we go to sleep. I mean, why are we programmed to sleep? It's very strange when you think about it. It seems to be to recharge the body's battery, but we know so very little about it. For all we know, we are upgraded nightly with the latest download or software release from the universal computer. We experience life and interpret signals with our brain in various states of consciousness, which psychologists classify as alpha, beta, theta, and delta waves. So it's very possible that this life we think we are living is just another dream from which we will wake from. The ancient Maya believed that the world is an illusion, and the Aborigines speak of what they call the dream time, and that there exists a more real world where we truly reside. Christopher Nolan, film director for the movie Inception, explained, quote, regardless of the fact the story deals with different dream states, it is crucial that at every level the world feels concrete, because when we are in a dream, we accept it as reality. In the movie, the character Cobb reveals dreams feel real while we're in them. It's only when we wake up that we realize something was actually strange. His best friend in the film was played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who said, I consider myself a creative person, and dreams are where we're all artists. Everything you do in a dream, everything you see, everything you hear, everyone you talk to is your creation. That's evidence of how powerful the creative mind could be if we were to let it. The game is that it's all just a dream, an illusion, if you will. Most of us live our lives sleepwalking in a dream state like zombies. How do you know we're not dreaming right now? Earth is a farm system where everything breaks down and dies, and where the creatures are forced to eat and feed off each other just to survive in the food chain. Life on Earth is a dog-eat-dog world where survival of the fittest rules. There are predator-prey relationships and also parasitic ones where leeches feed off their hosts. There are both beneficial and unfriendly bacteria and viruses in our body cells which fight each other. Humanity has been likened to a virus on the Earth. There are also symbiotic relationships where systems feed off each other, like the 2012 movie We Are Living in, The Hunger Games. We all love the big game, and as humans we like to believe we're at the top of the food chain, but like cattle who are oblivious to their slaughter by the farmer until the very end, we could similarly be clueless to invisible entities who might feed off our energy and capture our souls when we die. Human beings were placed on this plant in the Garden of Eden. Are we people or a pea pole? Peas or beans and do grow on a pea pole in pods. And it's very interesting that so many of the latest sci-fi programs depict humans in pods. living a simulated life. And of course, there are game pods, iPods, and podcasts. As kids, we are said to be raised much like crops are. Semen is often referred to as seed, and if someone is our ancestor, they are said to be from our seed. So why are we called a human? Is it because we have different races or hues? According to the Dictionary of Ancient Deities, Hu was an Egyptian stellar god of sense of taste and also of divine food on which gods and mortals feed. And he appears at the creation in the boat of the sun. Later he appears at the judgment of the dead. I wonder what was on his menu. Every time a new fetus is created, do they say, feed us? It's all dream theater, theater for the eater. So we were placed on this planet Earth in a secret garden by a constant gardener. And of course, we're all familiar with the Grim Reaper who is said to come harvest your soul at death. Human beings, we consist of a very small portion of the electromagnetic spectrum of frequencies. There are colors and light we cannot see with the naked eye, such as infrared or ultraviolet. Dogs can hear sounds outside our range. Even the most sensitive instruments of science can only measure a very small portion. These entities feed off our auric field from an overtonal wave from our wavelength. The theme of entities feeding off our energy or life force is pretty prevalent even in today's society. Vampire movies are more popular than ever, with the Twilight trilogy the most recent example. The living dead also are quite a phenomenon, as people love to joke about the coming zombie apocalypse. Most religions, I'm sorry, I lost my place here. Are you guys still there?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Most religions believe in demons which can possess a soul. Catholic priests even perform exorcisms in more severe cases. Shamans are known to extract these attachments, or intrusions as they are called. Carlos Castaneda mentions demonic possession at length in his book, The Active Side of Infinity. He says, quote, "We have a predator that came from the depths of the cosmos and took over the rule of our lives. Human beings are its prisoners. The predator is our Lord and Master. It has rendered us docile, helpless. If we want to protest, it suppresses our protest. If we want to act independently, it demands that we don't do so. I have been beating around the bush all this time, insinuating to you that something is holding us prisoner. Indeed, we are held prisoner. This was an energetic fact for the sorcerers of ancient Mexico. They took us over because we are food for them, and they squeeze us mercilessly because we are their sustenance, just as we rear chickens in chicken coops. The predators rear us in human coops, human arrows. Therefore, their food is always available to them." In her book, The Unquiet Dead, a psychologist treats spirit possession, Dr. Edith Fiore, a hypnotherapist, wrote about many of her clients having spirit attachments. We're mostly a composite of our thoughts, emotions, feelings, and our physical composition, so we can be influenced or controlled by these. Our thoughts are largely based on what we're taught growing up and our conditioning, what we see and hear, that is words that comprise our language, and images or symbols that we see around us and we're inundated with constantly. Art imitates life, and life in turn reflects the bigger, true picture and may give us insight into why we're truly here and where we came from. Language, logos, and the media also influences our conscious and subconscious minds and beliefs about the moon, the sun, and light, so that would include music, television, movies, etc. Also, religion and politics can use our emotions against us and provoke us into flag waving and justifying the cause for holy wars. The devil is in the details, so we're going to look at each of these areas. The first area I'd like to look at is language. And we languish in our languid language because we are spellbound by the spelling of words which pronounce a life sentence with prison terms. Spelling. We spell words to create a sentence with jail terms, and it's a life sentence. And in our language, we use curse words and cursive writing. Rite is in a ritual or magical rite. We cuss and discuss. Words have meaning, and our mean things, especially crosswords, can be used to make a point. We use a converse to converse in order to keep us off course in our discourse because of phrase. We use catchwords. A story is a spiel or a spell. So words are spelled to create a sentence of terms. Books contain chapters, which are secret societies or religious orders, like the Knights Templar. A chapter contains many pages. A page is an understudy and in service to the queen and king, as in pages and squires. A knight who's well versed in magic and is more or less a soldier or trained assassin. To page someone is to summons them. Pages are bound together and summon demons. After all, a page does contain many sentences. A jail sentence is served in a prison ward. And indeed, a sentence is created by words that are spelled out by using letters. A letter is someone who allows something to happen or someone who does something for someone else, like a blood letter. English has Germanic origins, and you can recognize letters in the English alphabet have origins in Germanic runes, which were used to cast spells. The sound or phonetic value of the rune is its vibratory quality in the air and space. Each rune has a certain sound to it to be chanted or sung. This is the magical creative quality that is inherent in speech. How to ruin a language with rune magic. The runes can be used to affect the world outside based on the archetypes they represent. You have the science of cymatics. Hans Jenny studied how frequency and oscillation affects the very structure of matter. So all this energy travels in waves, and Jenny studied how the vibrational energy of sound waves, such as the human voice or music, create an interference that forms geometric patterns on a vibrating membrane like a steel plate with media, such as sand or glycerin. He found the increasing the frequency made more complex forms like mandalas, snowflakes, like sacred geometry patterns. And, listeners may be familiar with blowing a smoke ring by making lips into the shape of an O. It's the same idea. The ancient magic books of Europe, which contained instructions to summon demons, were known as the grimoires. The French word for grammar, a grimoire or spellbook, is a derivative of the French word grammaire. Another language which is subconscious is corporate logos. Logos as symbols speak indirectly to the subconscious mind, and their colors, shapes, images, and meanings can influence our thoughts without even being aware of it. And product names such as Sunkist and Pine Sol, and logos which include the sun, the moon, stars, manipulate our emotions to associate the product with the symbol and vice versa. Homophones, where two words have the same sound but different meanings, allow for lots of room for deception. Mixed messages speaking to the subconscious mind, which scrambles to make sense of a sentence using context, with double meanings and double speak. Think about the words know, K-N-O-W, and know, N-O. Knowledge is considered a very positive word, yet is linked phonetically with the most negative word in our language. So when you say, I know this to be true, are you partially negating its reality? Also, consider the mind's ability to combine words and sounds. When someone sneezes, you feel customarily obligated to say, bless you. But if you sound out the syllables, does your subconscious mind also make the connection to the phrase, be less you? So the very act of blessing someone could also subconsciously be telling them to be less. Spell casting. So, the next time someone says, be less you, I don't want to be less. How about you? I want to be more. Shouldn't they really say, be more you? Or someone tells you to have a nice day. Have a nice day. Why don't they tell you to double a nice day or triple a nice day? People are always telling you to be safe. Isn't a safe where you put something in a box and lock it up? Do they want to put you in a box and lock you up? Another aspect of language is reverse speech. David John Oates, who's from your neck of the woods, I believe, has done a lot of great research into that topic. Have you interviewed him or
no,
you know about him?
No.
Yeah, he found this subject called reverse speech, and like we're talking right now, if you take it and reverse the words, and you'll find subconscious messages in it that'll either affirm or deny what the person's talking about.
It's crazy.
It's amazing. And I'll give you a little testimony. I bought one of his reverse speech machines, and I sat down with my mom, and we talked for like 5 minutes about the dog that was outside, right? And this dog would chase these squirrels up the tree, but the squirrels would only go halfway up the tree, and they turn around and be looking down at the dog, kind of taunting it. And so when I played back, we were talking about that. So when I was playing back in reverse, I heard the phrase, the squirrel be facing the ground with knowledge, with wisdom. In other words, he was looking down at the ground with the knowledge and wisdom that the dog couldn't get to him. That was in 5 minutes, I discovered that it was true. So... Yeah, let me move on to religion. So I'd like to dispel some religious objections because over 90% of the globe subscribes to one major religion or another.
Sure do. It's full on.
Yeah. So Napoleon, the Emperor of France, said, religion is what keeps the poor man from murdering the rich. Karl Marx, of course, said religion is the opiate of the masses. And I found out all major religions were given to us by princes from the elite royal families. In Hinduism, the teachings of Hinduism are largely based upon Lord Krishna, who was a prince, the eighth son born to the princess Devaki. Krishna married Rukmini, the Vidarbha princess, in the epic holy writing, the Bhagavad Gita. I'm going to butcher all these names. Krishna convinces the hero Arjuna on the battlefield why fighting the war against his own family with full dedication is just. Buddhism was given to us by Gautama Buddha, who was born in a royal Hindu Kshatriya family. According to the most traditional biography, the Buddha's father was King Suddhodana, his mother Queen Mahamaya, and Suddhodana's wife was a Kaliyan princess. Siddhartha is then said to have spent 29 years as a prince and had 3 palaces. He taught that suffering was part of life and that one should suppress desires. He outlined what is the right way to think and behave. And in Judaism was given to us by Moses, their most important prophet via the books of the Old Testament, the Torah. According to Exodus 2, Moses was conveniently said to have been found in a reed basket in the Nile River by the princess daughter of the Pharaoh and adopted a royal family and raised in Pharaoh. So Moses was treated as an Egyptian prince. DreamWorks Pictures even made a famous animated movie based on Egypt starring Val Kilmer. In Christianity, Jesus was said to be in the line of King David. It's called King of Jews and King of Kings, and the source of the church, the Holy Blood, Holy Grail. And we can also see how much power the royal family creation of Christianity, and the fact that Emperor Constantine, a murderer, officially made it the state religion. Also, King James commissioned the translation of the King James Bible. There are even 2 books in the Old Testament named Kings 1 and Kings 2. And got characters as King Solomon and King David. And so as you see, Christianity in the Bible was very much rooted in politics. In fact, councils were held to decide which books to include and exclude from the Bible. In Islam, Muhammad, the founder of Islam, was the son of the most noble family in Arabia, Banu Hashim, and married a wealthy businesswoman from a very prominent family of an elite tribe named Khadijah, who was given the title Amirat Quraysh, Princess of Quraysh. The royal family of Jordan and the Moroccan royal families claim descent from Muhammad. The Hashemite royal family of Jordan are direct descendants of the Prophet through his daughter Fatima and her husband Ali bin Abi Talib. From the United Press International, October 10, 1986 article entitled Muslims in Buckingham Palace. Quote, mixed in with Queen Elizabeth's blue blood is the blood of the Muslim prophet Muhammad, according to Burke's Peerage, the genealogical guide to royalty. Brooks Baker said the British royal family is descended from Muhammad through the Arab kings of Seville, who once ruled Spain. By marriage, their blood passed to the European kings of Portugal and Castile, and through them to English 15th century King Edward IV. These messages are to pacify and control the masses. The elite wish to keep all the gold and power they have, so they teach us to turn the other cheek, and that the meek shall inherit the earth. They use fear to threaten an eternal hell if we don't behave, and promise us heaven or a better life after we die as a reward for our good behavior. Reincarnation is a reincarceration in the wheel of rebirth or being recycled. Of course, in reincarnation, we don't remember our past experiences, so we don't remember the lessons. The researcher Jordan Maxwell said, quote, on December 22nd, the sun going south reaches its lowest point in the sky, our winter solstice. At that lowest point, the sun stops moving on the sundial for 3 days, December 22nd, 23rd, 24th, in the southern constellation known as the Southern Cross. Hence, our Savior, dead for 3 days, died on the cross, the Southern Cross constellation, that is. It's the only time in the year that the sun actually stops its movement in our sky. On the morning of December 25th, the sun begins its annual journey back to us in the northern hemisphere, bringing, of course, our spring. Therefore, on December 25th, our sun is born again, and to this day, his worshippers still celebrate his birthday. I'd like to speak a little bit about Gnosticism, since I'm going to be talking about the demiurge and the archons, which are Gnostic thoughts.
Yeah, it's interesting too, and all the religions stem from UFO cults as well, so, we have to look at that.
There's a great book. Have you read William Bramley's book, The Gods of Eden?
Yes, yeah, and I was just listening to an interview with him the other night as well, and I have that book, yeah, but it smacks you in the face when you hear that, but you realize that's exactly right, that all the religions stemmed from UFO cults in some way, and the UFOs
they all
go right through history.
Angels of light.
Yeah, through history it goes, all through the Christian culture, Amazing. And he also mentions the great plagues like the Black Death, where there was heavy people all over Europe and the world saw these crafts around, and even the Grim Reaper. So, it goes right through history, so people need to be aware of that as well. It's important.
My grandma was in the hospital recently, and she's like doing rehab. Well, I just talked to her this weekend, and she's told me that she's seen the Grim Reaper several times. It was like years ago, but that she has seen the Grim Reaper.
Yeah, yes.
And he's like this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of accounts of it. Anyway, keep moving. This is good.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on Gnosticism, since we're going to be mentioning the demiurge and archons, which are generally a Gnostic thought. In the beginning, during the infancy of Christianity, there was said to be secret teachings of Christ. These teachings are radically different than what the world now knows as Christianity. This way did not require churches. It did not require spiritual middlemen such as priests. This way did not have laws. This way required trying to perfect yourself through righteousness and knowledge. The teachings say the answers and truths to everything can only be found within yourself. These teachings became very alarming to the early Orthodox Church, as it was directly opposed to the position of power the Church was after. These teachings would inspire many Gnostic Christian sects within this early time period as it was increasing in popularity. The Orthodox Church declared them all heretics. Any books or texts they had were considered heretical and were to be burned, or they risked death. Irenaeus, in his 2nd century tract, declared the Church's beliefs as being orthodox and the Gnostics as being heretical. This heretic label has been used as a pass to exterminate any and all those who oppose the Orthodox Church's position of power. I'd say it's remembering that we are divine, and by looking inside yourself is the only way to see the truth. As we realize the deception we live under by that truth, the soul craves to return to the place of perfection. That soul then sets its sights on its origin, the eternal light realms, true heavens, and tries to perfect itself in fullness to make this journey home, helping as many others as we can during the process. These teachings, while detailed in many aspects, can be distilled into a few themes, and this is in no way all-encompassing. One theme is what some consider God is not God at all. That is, a creator God who was created in air, enslaved the world through deception, is referred to as the demiurge. Above this demiurge exists the true Father of all, he who is ineffable. Father meaning the source of all life, not meaning it's male. Ineffable meaning too great or extreme to be expressed or described in words. Another theme is every human soul worldwide is divine, that this divine soul became trapped in an illusion, copy of the real heavens, where it is held hostage. Stuck within a cycle of amnesia, which is incarnation, and deception between the incarnations. We no longer can see our way out. Another theme is that Christ incarnated not to die for our sins, but to show the example, the template for liberation. He was sent by he who is ineffable to show us the way out. And not only are we deceived through the afterlife and all kinds of nonsense we are told on earth, there is another sinister shackle bound to our souls. This shackle is called the counterfeiting spirit. It was made by the demiurge, and when we are born, what we think of ourselves as me is actually we. We are 3 parts. One is actually you, and called the soul. The second is a light power, a template from the Father of all, which could be translated as the Holy Spirit or higher self. And lastly is the counterfeiting spirit, who is with you from birth. It is that second voice that often tells you negative things, pushing you to act selfishly. You have heard that voice since birth and will swear it is you, but it is not you. And once it gets you to act selfish or sin, it also becomes your witness in the afterlife, incriminating you. I'm just going to touch real quickly on politics and the word government. To govern is to rule or control, and ment is of the mind or mental. Thus, the word government means mind control. The U.S. Code, Title 28, Section 3002, the term United States is defined as a federal corporation. Noam Chomsky said corporations were given the rights of immortal persons who had no moral conscience, designed by law to be concerned only for their service. Jordan Maxwell, original birth certificate back, you would find that on the back of the birth certificate are all banks around the world. All over the world, banks have used your birth certificate because you are a stock in a maritime admiralty banking scheme where you make money for banks. So consequently, the corporation and government and people who want to control you, they create a second you, and that second you that they control, they created in all capital letters. And Social Security card, insurance card, anything period, anything having to do with business, your name will always be in all capital letters because only all capital letters can be dealt with by banks and government. Is that true in Australia?
Say so everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Not only were all the major religions were given to us by princes of the royal families, but world leaders meet in secret societies. Presidents and Skull and Bones and attendees of Bohemian Grove, which features a cremation of care ceremony and a mock sacrifice to a 40-foot giant statue of an owl. You have to look at the content of the ceremonies conducted by the world leaders at the World Olympic Games, which perpetuates ancient Greek mythology of the gods of Mount Olympus, and even today still feature cauldron, their name for it, and the Olympic torch, which is lit from the rays of the sun by Vestal virgins. So today, in the world's greatest symbol of unification, we have the Olympic Games, where the ceremony is an eternal flame or torch burning in constant relay. And the flame was an honor. Man, he stuck up to the torch front and hid a burning piece of charcoal in a hollow stalk. Zeus punished Prometheus by chaining him to a rock or pillar. There's a statue of Prometheus giving fire to man in the Rockefeller Center. The Statue of Liberty is also a representation because Lucifer, the light bearer, and Prometheus offer mankind freedom. In 2012, the movie Prometheus Rising was released, whose name reminds us of Lucifer rising. In the London 2012 Olympic Games opening ceremony media guide on page 36, it says, quote, "The first torchbearer was Prometheus, who stole fire from Mount Olympus and gave it as a gift to mankind." My Oxford Dictionary of English Etymology says, as the name of a friction match to produce instantaneous light, Lucifer succeeded to Prometheus, both recorded 1831. And the New Shorter Oxford English Dictionary says, quote, "Lucifer, the morning star, the planet Venus, when in the sky before sunrise, Satan, the devil." So, you have the world leader of the sun, and since the worship. The Aztec, Mayan, and pre-Incan priests would build pyramids of the sun whose unfinished tops were altars where bloody ritual human sacrifice took place. Human hearts were ripped out of a victim's chest and offered up to the sun and then thrown into the sacrificial fire in order to keep the sun alive and moving along its journey. In return, the sun god would continue to sacrifice its life and energy so that man could live. The sun's been connected to sacrifice since the dawn of time. In Christian theology, the Son of God, representing the Son of God, S-U-N, was sacrificed and gave his life for us so that we could have eternal life in return. In return, we give our hearts to Jesus, the morning star, the light of the world who walks on water, or the Son of God. You have these secret societies such as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, Order of the Solar Temple, United Order of the Golden Cross, Knights of the Golden Circle. Freemasons have their blazing star emblem and the letter G, which I believe is the sun, since the dictionary defines our sun as a G-class star, and also defines soul as the letter G in the musical scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. You have the Screenwriters Guild, it goes on and on. Everyone automatically assumes the sun is positive. As the giver of life, how could it not be? Yes, it's responsible for sustaining our life on this physical plane, but what if this physical plane is a prison for our souls? Then the sun is an enabler and therefore would be bad for us. Think about this. If the sun weren't there at all our souls would be set free from our bodies, free to roam the universe and have other experiences. But we are imprisoned by these body cells and bound to earth by its gravity, and in return to the gravity of the sun. But we are also held in by the radiation of the Van Allen belt. So think about the nature of the sun. It's radiation, and radiation is harmful. If we weren't just the perfect distance away from the sun, we'd all be fried to a crisp. Even here, you can get a first-degree burn if you stay out too long on a hot day. The sun can cause deadly skin cancer, and we're told it's a fireball, and fire can cook a meal or warm our weary bones on a cold day, but fire can also destroy if unchecked. And lightning can be harnessed for electricity or it can kill. If physical matter is a prison and we're being kept in prison here, then perhaps the sun enables us and keeps us in this solar system. A hologram needs a light source and two mirrors, reflections, I believe. And how about the sun as the light source and the moon and Venus as mirrors? And maybe Saturn provides the hologram pattern. Some of the near-death experiencers have some interesting things to say. One said the knowledge was a holographic experience, which I don't remember. The nature of this realm defies logic and violates our sense of reality. That was Beverly B. Another one said, I was in the middle of some kind of hologram. I noticed all my feelings, emotions, personality, and knowledge were still with me, and that I carried a large amount of anger towards certain people, especially my parents and the religion they used against me. Another one said, I tested myself. My body was like a hologram. My whole life replayed itself. Then I got to the end of the channel and was greeted by a big group of human beings. I knew them all, but only on that other side. When I came back, I realized I didn't know any of them. Another person said, I'm seeing that illusions only seem real. The flat world does not exist. The farther science goes, the more illusions of space and time are discovered. We are not flesh and blood, but more like holograms. We live in the spirit, not in the flesh, and the spirit is love. Romy said, I could see how we were all connected. I was connected to everybody in a multifaceted light web, a DNA-like hologram that was in perfect order. Everything connected to everything with delicate threads of light that were the gaps between each moment. It showed my connection to other people, other souls, other incidents, moments past, future, and present. There was complete order and complete acceptance of everything. Then were there no pictures, but a strong sense of motion forwards. Anita M. said, it felt like I had awoken from the illusion of life, and from that perspective, it looked like my physical life was just a culmination of my thoughts and beliefs up to that point. It felt like the whole world was just a culmination of the thoughts and beliefs of the collective. Kathleen A. said, I'm very sure this world is an illusion. Another person said, I consider this light to be myself, my eternal part, permanent, immortal, outside space and time, a tiny piece of God, my higher consciousness. It's difficult to define, but I am a part of the light and permanently connected to it. I can communicate with it. I find it difficult to give a definition because I neither have nor have any religious belief. I'm looking for a scientific explanation. I believe it is closer to the concept of a matrix or an ultra supercomputer than to Christ or Buddha. We live anesthetized, confused in the hologram of the matrix. Another person said the tunnel was like a matrix of bright golden lights crisscrossed all around as if there was more in them I couldn't see. It was Gloria M. Then we have this concept called Indra's net, which is the net of the Vedic god Indra, whose net hangs over his palace on Mount Meru, the axis mundi of Hindu cosmology and Hindu mythology. Indra's net has a multifaceted jewel at each vertex, and each jewel is reflected in all the other jewels. And one of the sutras, the image of Indra's net is used to describe the interconnectedness of the universe. Far away in the heavenly abode of the great god Indra, there is a wonderful net which has been hung by some cunning artificer in such a manner that it stretches out infinitely in all directions. In accordance with the extravagant taste of deities, the artificer has hung a single glittering jewel in each eye of the net, and since the net itself is infinite in dimension, the jewels are infinite in number. There hang the jewels glittering like stars in the first magnitude, a wonderful sight to behold. If we now arbitrarily select one of these jewels for inspection and look closely at it, we will discover that in its polished surface there are reflected all the other jewels in the net, infinite in number. Not only that, but each of the jewels reflected in this one jewel is also reflecting all the other jewels, so that there is an infinite reflecting process occurring. Sounds like a hologram. Terminator Genesis and the humans are fighting Skynet. I do think there's a wall or a dome or a net, and that you have terms like knighthood and dome or domination. The Lord is, Dominus is the Lord. You've got Walden books where we're like walled in, and I think Nut was an Egyptian deity too. You have the internet, and where you enter a net, and the World Wide Web. Bruce Cathy has a book called The World Grid, and not to mention the Matrix, which is a grid, plus Freemasons use a crisscross pattern. I'd like to move on to the moon, which is a big topic for me.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's a huge one.
Yeah.
I was just looking, staring at some stuff on it, actually. Yeah, it all ties in, doesn't it? It's,
It really does, and I got some mind-blowing stuff on the moon. But
yeah.
So the moon can be seen in logos such as DreamWorks pictures, where a boy is sitting on the moon, the neon light that shows a siren, which is that the Columbia hold up her fourth in the Columbia Pictures logo. And the Miller High Life sign reads, "Fishing, reel in the high life." The moon eclipsing the sun is shown in the movie poster for The Ring with the tagline, "Before you die, you see the ring." And speaking of the total eclipse, it's an uncanny coincidence that the moon's diameter is about 400 times smaller than the sun's, yet it is 400 times closer to the Earth, so it just about perfectly blocks out the sun during a solar eclipse. And you have the backside, or the so-called dark side of the moon, which we can talk about later. Another eerie coincidence that the moon just happens to rotate slow enough that the same side always faces Earth. Moon gods and goddesses in mythology. The Egyptian moon god Thoth was the trickster god and god of thieves, the escort of souls in the afterlife, the transporter of souls, and the conductor of spirits from this world to the next. He carried a scepter or staff called the Jed pillar or the Jed column, which was often spoken in terms of flow of electromagnetic energies. Also, the Egyptian moon goddess Isis, who was the mistress of magic, queen of sorcery, and lady of the spell. The Greek moon goddess Diana was goddess of the hunt, and also the Greek Hecate was goddess of witchcraft. Lilith was the patroness of witches, queen of demons, a lusty demoness who preys upon men at night and kills babies. From the book called The Moon, Myth and Image by Jules Casford. He says, the new moon festival of the Pygmies in Africa suggests how the moon governs and relates to different cosmic levels of rain, plants, animal, and human fecundity, as well as the souls of the dead. Because the moon is both the mother of living things and the refuge of ghosts, the women smear themselves with white clay and vegetable juice, looking like ghosts in the moonlight. He later relates tales of, quote, the moon as the dealer of death. The Maoris called the moon the man-eater, the source of death. In equatorial Africa, some tribes said the moon looks down over our country and seeks whom she may devour, and we poor black men are very much afraid of her on that account, and we hide ourselves from her sight on that night. In Central Asia, the Tartars thought a giant lived in the moon who ate people. The Tupi tribes of Brazil believe that all baneful influences, thunder and floods, proceed from the moon. In some shamanic lore, the moon steals souls, and it is the shaman's task to journey to the moon and bring them back. A South American Talipang myth tells how the moon had carried off the soul of a child and hidden it under a pot. The shaman went to the moon, found the pot, and freed the child's soul. In Polynesian myth, the moon goddess Hina is portrayed as relentless in her unconcern for humankind. Maui, the ancient god, implored his mother Hina, the moon, to give people the gift of immortality. Let humans die and live again, as you, the moon, die and live again, he said. But Hina replied, no, let them die and increase the soil and never rise to life again. Maui kept trying. Let death be very short, let the people die and live again and live forever. But Hina said, let death be very long, that the people may sigh in sorrow. Tales of the kidnapping moon in Europe, the offended moon in Samoa and Northwest America, and the hunting moon in Greece, Rome, and the Near East may be seen as the moon bringing about death. In another image, the cup of the moon filled and emptied with soma as the immortal liquid rhythmically sipped by the gods. Or else soma as the moon fills up with the souls of the dead, carrying them onwards to the sun. As the souls leave the moon boat one by one, soma becomes empty again. The kings, I could just go on and on with this, but I guess it's interesting that it's in somebody else's book, that they compile just dozens and dozens of these tales.
The moon.
He devotes a whole section to the moon as the abode of souls, and yet another to the moon as a stage in the journey to the sun. And everyone who dies becomes an ancestor to the living. And in one of the Upanishads it is said, all who depart from this world go to the moon. In the former, the bright half, the moon delights in their spirits, prana. In the other, the dark half, the moon sends them on to be born again. The idea of the moon as the abode of souls is found among many people: Bushmen, Polynesians, Hindus, Japanese, Babylonians, Egyptians, Assyrians, Phoenicians, Hittites, Manichaeans, Greeks. In the Egyptian Book of Respirations, Isis breathes the wish for Osiris that his soul may rise to heaven in the disk of the moon. The deceased in Egypt was said to become Osiris, and so to renew his life like the moon. As it is written on a ritual papyrus on the embalming of the dead, the moon was called the abode of Osiris. Pythagoras, according to Plutarch, located the Elysian fields on the side of the moon turned perpetually towards heaven, never visible to the human eyes. I think I'm going to skip down a little bit. There's just so much of the Upanishads, and it's just amazing. The moon and sun are here conceived as boats carrying souls, moving through the blue-black waters of heaven. When the moon waxed, it was full of souls, bringing them to the ions of light, which placed them in the pillar of glory, their final place of rest. Then the moon returned to the west for another boat full of souls, now much smaller than before. This lovely image of the waxing and waning moon, swelling up with its load of souls and shrinking when it has delivered them to the sun, is also found in China. Among the Gnostics, too, the moon was conceived as a celestial ship bearing the souls of the departed. And this is all from his book, mind you. This isn't me. The upward flight of the souls to the heavens is an image of death common to many cultures. Anyway, in all these myths, the moon is both a place, the land of the dead, and an active guardian presence whose role is to receive, purify, and regenerate souls. And another section, not of his book, but there's been these structures seen on the moon, a tower and a shard. This is the work of Richard Hoagland and John Lear. Have commented a lot on it. But anyways, it says the shard is an obvious structure which rises above the moon's surface by more than a mile. Its overall irregular, spindly shape, with constricted nodes and swollen inner nodes, if natural, has got to be a wonder of the universe. No known natural process can explain such a structure. Computer enhancement with about 190 feet resolution shows an irregular outline with more reflective and less reflective surfaces. The amount of sunlight reflecting from parts of the shard indicate a composition inconsistent with that of most natural substances. Only crystal facets and glass can reflect that much light. Single crystals the size of city blocks are currently unknown. The shard may be a highly eroded remnant of some sort of artificial structure made of glass-like material. Other larger structures and their reflectivity in the area support this theory. Beyond and to the left of this shard is another huge 6 to 7 mile high tower with a tripodal base and a cubical array atop which is over a mile in diameter. Appearing like a huge air traffic controller tower, this crystalline structure appears to be suspending a huge dome with an enormous geometric web-like grid system. Although the dome and the twin towers themselves appear to be partially smashed and twisted by either meteoric bombardment or possibly even an ancient nuclear attack, these structures are clearly visible in computer-enhanced photographs. And the moon tower, the tower represents an enigma of the highest magnitude because it rises more than 5 miles above the surface of the moon and has been photographed from 5 different angles and 2 different altitudes. In all 4 photographs, the same structure is visible and can be viewed from 2 different sides. The tower exists in front of and to the left of the shard in the Lunar Orbital 384M photograph. The distance from the tower and the camera is estimated at about 200 miles, while the distance of the shard beyond the tower is estimated at about 230 miles. The top of the tower has a very ordered cubic geometry and appears to be composed of regular cubes, joined together to form a very large cube with an estimated width of over 1 mile. There is apparent damage to the outline and surface of this mega cube because many cubic spaces or indentations occur over its surface. Anyway, to the left of the shard, a faint anomaly was photographed. After printing the negative over and over again at different exposure levels and analyzing the results with various computer image processes, the anomaly was found to be a massive tower cube hanging more than 7 miles above the moon. So I'll just leave it at that. There's a lot more I could read about, but
this incredible, isn't it?
It really is.
You go outside at night. Yeah, you just see this moon and, it controls the tides and lights up the night sky. But, yeah.
It just happens to be, the right size to cover the sun perfectly during a total eclipse. And it always has this one side facing towards us.
And you always hear it was like a lot of cultures, I know African cultures, tribes and stuff say it was pulled there or anchored there. And that it didn't exist in the past at some state. This thing just looks, it just looks absolutely weird, doesn't it?
It doesn't look like it belongs there. It's like
no, and it's gone right throughout history. The strange stuff going around this moon. And we've never really got answers for it. But this really makes sense, doesn't it? It really does.
Check this out. Here are some near-death experiencers that mention the moon. Ron A. said, I believe this was God, our creator of the universe, highest power As I took a look around, I saw a bright light. It was the moon. The sun was reflecting light off the moon's surface. We were in space, equal distance to the moon on the right side. I do not think this was heaven's final destination. I think it was a greeting area to receive us when we cross over. Wayne J. said, I felt like I was being propelled by some force towards the heavens and still felt like it was perfectly normal. The next thing I remember was passing near the moon and wondering why it wasn't a flat disk. I could easily see that it was a globe. Really strange in later life because I had no way of knowing this at 5 years of age. Jim C. said, I was like in a huge void with spots of light like stars around. Somehow I felt like I was between the earth and the moon. I felt this overwhelming presence next to me on my right side like the moon, but it was an intelligence. I felt like I was in space near the moon. Kevin P. said, I couldn't describe what it looked like because it was just a gray world to me, which I raced through, or more like Ben raced through. When I felt like slowing down and being stopped in what seemed absolutely like space near the earth to me, at least that was what I would imagine from movies, somewhere near Earth, but at least a little farther out than the moon, because Earth was not bigger than the moon usually is. And all these near-death experiences I got from off the nderf.org website, Near-Death Experiences Research Foundation. So anybody can go out there and check them out and search for yourself.
So that's really interesting that people say they sort of went to the moon in their near-death experience. That's, amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to skip this one because it's very long. Nilda said, he said, I'm going to show you some things. Then in the distance, I saw a globe that looked like the moon during an eclipse. He said, that is the Earth, and I saw many points of light in the globe. Valerie B. said, I flew around it to pass it, and my trip continues. Once closer to the city, another block, but this time diagonally. And like this, the block that hindered my arrival to the city was repeated 5 times. And every time the block was much bigger and the city more beautiful and closer. Just when I was ready to go into the great city, a big voice, something like when a big thunder comes down and booms strongly and on a very authoritarian form and sounding very loud, says my name, and then I started to feel as an incredible force, like a big turbine was pulling me back, and just when I was returning I could see the moon, and a big transparent being like the jellyfish was holding over his head the moon, and with the feet in between both feet holding the planet Earth. Riva said the walls of the house were just not there. I was moving towards a beautiful bright light just like the moon, but sending out long rays of light that I was going towards. I kept going higher and higher towards the light myself. Saw myself and my family getting smaller, and then suddenly my grandma woke up, opened her prayer book, and started praying. Juan I. said, as I turned to face the direction to which I was being pulled, the moment I turned around, there was a bright, blinding light as I expected to see the moon. But at that precise moment, as I faced towards the direction I was floating and being pulled towards, it felt like an instantaneous vacuum, as if I was being sucked in incredible speeds toward that light. And the last one, Mayumi T. from Japan, she said, I saw a light that looked like a moon, and it was shining down on me. My body started floating slowly toward the light, high in the air. After I entered the light, I was greeted by a huge garden full of yellow flowers, and the sky was colored pink like a sunset. I'd like to share a few scientific articles about the moon and gravitational portals. An article on space.com titled, NASA Discovers Portals in Space Between the Earth and the Sun. It says, quote, NASA has turned science fiction into science fact by announcing the discovery of hidden portals in Earth's magnetic field. NASA spokesman said, there are places where the magnetic field of Earth connects to the magnetic field of the Sun, creating an uninterrupted path leading from our own planet to the Sun's atmosphere 93 million miles away. Magnetic portals are invisible, unstable, and elusive. They open and close without warning, and there are no signposts to guide us in, said Scudder. Some of the portals are minuscule and disappear almost instantly, while some are large and fairly stable. Space.com says, quote, like giant cosmic chutes between the Earth and Sun, magnetic portals open up every 8 minutes or so to connect our planet with its host star. Called a flux transfer event, or FTE, such cosmic connections not only exist but are possibly twice as common as anyone ever imagined, according to space scientists who attended the 2008 Plasma Workshop in Huntsville, Alabama last week. One idea is that on the side of Earth facing the Sun, our magnetic field presses against the Sun's magnetic field, and about every 8 minutes the two fields briefly reconnect, forming a portal through which particles can flow. The portal takes the form of a magnetic cylinder about as wide as Earth. Seebeck said to think of the FTE as a giant rolling pin that lies flat along the boundary between the Earth's and Sun's magnetic fields. He noted the rolling pin would have to be malleable so it could pierce through both magnetic fields while lying flat. These FTEs kind of look like roller pins, and they form as little blob roller pins at the tip of the magnetosphere facing the sun, Seebeck told Space.com. They can't decide which way they're going to slide around the Earth, so they grow there into big roller pins, and then they take off and sort of spirally roll on the Earth's magnetosphere, like you're pounding out dough, end quote. So I'm kind of thinking that when the moon is aligned with Earth, as it is in an eclipse, so it's between the sun and the Earth, that the same magnetic portal between the Earth and sun would be available between the moon rock and the sun as well. So we get rocked and rolled, you see. This article appeared in New Scientist magazine, issue 3033, published August 8, 2015, entitled Earth May Have a Hairy Mane of Dark Matter Flowing Around It. A mane of dark matter may stream out from the Earth. Nearly 85% of the matter in the universe is thought to be so-called dark matter, stuff that has not yet been detected directly because it only interacts with normal matter via gravity. Rather than being distributed smoothly throughout galaxies, simulations show that dark matter particles should clump into features like halos, disks, and streams. Gary Prezzo at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, California, wondered what would happen if a stream of dark matter pierced a planet like Earth. He calculated that the planet's gravity would bend the particles' trajectories and focus them to a point. This lensing effect would concentrate dark matter along an axis passing through Earth's core, reaching densities about 1 billion times more than average at the focal point. Prezzo calls these features hairs. The focus or root of one such hair would be about 1 million kilometers above Earth, quote, just beyond the moon, he says. If you find where these hairs are, you can put a detector right in one of them, Prezzo says. The last article is called May the Force Be With You, Scientists Discover Chameleon Dark Matter. There's a space villain out there responsible for ripping galaxies apart and stretching out the universe with inexorable efficiency. Its name, dark matter. According to a study released this past Thursday by the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory at the University of California, Berkeley, dark matter may have the ability to change its density and force based on the density of objects around it. The details of the new study were included in the story yesterday by International Business Times. Conventional science says there are 4 forces in our universe: strong and weak nuclear forces, and gravitational and electromagnetic. Chameleon fields could be the 5th. The original theory of a chameleon field emerged in 2004 when University of Pennsylvania physicist Justin Corey hypothesized that a self-altering force may exist. Berkeley assistant professor Holger Miller was quoted as saying that the chameleon field is, quote, is light in empty space, but then gets dramatically heavier when it enters an object. The chameleon field is light in empty space, but as soon as it enters an object, it becomes very heavy, and so couples only to the outermost layer of a bigger object and not to the internal parts. According to Space, a number of scientists have tried to pin down chameleon fields, but without success. In preparation for the study, scientists at Berkeley built a globe inside which they created a vacuum which reflected the force environment found in space. They placed an aluminum ball in the middle of the globe and then dropped cesium particles into the globe. According to past theories about chameleon fields, the cesium particles should have sped up as they got closer to the aluminum sphere in the middle of the vacuum. They didn't. The experiment wasn't considered a failure because scientists were able to rule out the possibility that chameleon fields interact with normal matter more strongly than matter. So that's my section on the moon.
Great stuff.
Go on.
Wayne.
Yeah, it's a lot of some new material I found.
Yeah. It's really, really good. And that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Put a lot of work into this.
Yeah, it is.
It's probably a different podcast for us, but you've just put so much, huge amount of work into this, and you've got so much material that you're working on all the time as well. So it's good to sort of just get it out like this in huge chunks so people can, listen back and go over it and,
it's something you have to listen to more than once.
Yeah, of course, and read and think about what's being said, because
and it's pretty much all up on my website too if you want to go through it. It'll take you days probably.
There's a lot on there. Yeah, it's a great website. Oh yeah, plenty on there to go through.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'd like to go onto the movies and Hollywood section. And
this is important as well, and I like on your website how you've got all the movie pictures up and stuff like that. And
well, I think it's important because the material is so dark and it can bring you down, and then it gets so, if all you see are a bunch of black and white words on a page, I mean, I think the pictures and all that stuff really helps. It's a buoyant effect,
But these archons or these creatures, they're tricksters, aren't they? And it's crazy because I know a lot of researchers have said probably one of their great weapons is the television set. But they have this sick sort of need to tell you or show you what they're going to do to you, if that makes sense. It's like they're showing us all the time.
With the mouse, right?
Yeah, and it's crazy. I played the clip at the start of the podcast from the Star Trek movie where the Archon's pretending to be the woman's father. And she won't go with him because it's such a great clip, and it can be used for
that was somebody else brought that to my attention. It was actually a Muslim person that I worked with, and I was telling him about my theory, and he's like, "You got to check out this episode of Star Trek." I'm like, "Okay," and I'm like, "Wow,"
They're showing you also with the Death Star in Star Wars, which could mean the moon as well.
Absolutely, and I think part of it might be that they need to get our consent. In other words, we said, well, you didn't tell us about all this stuff. And it's like, what are you talking about? We it was in all these movies and everything,
Well, that's the thing. Are you consenting when you watch TV? When you turn on the TV and you watch, is that your consent? Are you consenting to this? So that's the thing. Letting them into your subconscious and the freak, the waves that they build into these new televisions. We don't even know. What kind of technology is getting in there, and it gets into your dreams because you dream about TV shows and things.
Subconscious mind, right?
You watch it before sleep, and characters and creating.
You know what? I don't watch horror movies or any of that kind of stuff. I watch it purely for trying to figure out what's going on, mostly.
I did when I was little. I watched horror movies, and I had shocking nightmares, night terrors, right through my early years, teenagers into my 20s. Really, really terrible ones. So I just don't watch them anymore. I prefer to watch a documentary or something a bit funny, at least a comedy, because it's getting quite full on. And but this is good that you're going to go through the movies because I was just looking the other night at the The Walking Dead and at the amount of zombie movies that have come out. It's funny how they took it, from the original sort of Michael Jackson thing where where the zombie come out of the ground, out of the grave, and now people are infected with something, and it's honestly 8 or 9 out of 10 movies coming out of these zombie movies where they're eating each other. I go on to some of the movie channels just to have a look at this.
They're eating our brains. That's what they
eat on us. Shooting them and killing them. It's I've heard people talk about this that it's taking away our empathy, and it's and we may be being set up here for some type of global shutdown or some type of disaster, whether you want to call it, solar flares or some type of shutdown or disaster happening on our planet. And it's almost brainwashing people to think that after watching these movies that if people are sick and need help, you're going to shoot them and you want to kill them, because they're infected and they're evil. So it's a terrible thing, really, when people are watching this. I watched that Walking Dead, and it's a very drama-based show, but then there's scenes of people being eaten and ripped apart and staring, and it's really horrible. I can't sleep if I watch that, so I steer clear.
I interviewed the near-death experiencer who had met the demiurge, and I did it because somebody, I have a comment section on some of my main pages, and somebody said, well, I told a friend of mine who had a near-death experience that the light was a trick, and he just laughed, and he said it would be interesting to see what near-death experiencers think. And so I'm like, well, that's a very valid point. So I went to the IANS group locally here. It's the International Association for Near-Death Studies, and it's like a support group where people who've had near-death experiences, they gather and share them. And so I went, and I'm thinking, they're all going to talk about how great the light is, and they're just going to look at me like I got 3 heads. And of course, I didn't go in there and I didn't even tell anybody my theory until they went around the room sharing experiences. And one guy who happened to be sitting next to me said, just one short sentence. He said, there's a lot of psyops going on the earth right now. And I thought, okay, here's a person that might understand where I'm coming from, conspiracy theory and that sort. So I talked to him after the meeting, and I asked him, I said, have you ever heard anybody mention the demiurge or archons? And he said, I met the demiurge. And he said, the moon, and he didn't know about my site or anything. He said, the moon's here and the demiurge is like right outside the moon and it's an alien. And so I started talking to him and I asked him if he would come on if I could interview him for my website. And, so I'll get to that later, but I've got like almost a 3-hour interview linked up on my website. And he does talk about a time of darkness, a very dark time that we go through. And he doesn't know whether it's 3 days or months or whatever, but that we will get through it and rebuild, and there'll be thousands of years of just great peace here on the planet. And but I'll get to that.
It goes in and out, doesn't it? I guess if you're interdimensional sort of parasitic, I would say, species, alien species, and you can control the planet, you can just see, having this television, how powerful is that to shape the minds of all the people on the planet through the nightly news and this sort of the movies, the culture, our music, everything. As you go back in history and you research it, it's all been carefully manipulated and structured to keep us going in a certain line,
Yeah, and people love to be entertained. I mean, you go through a hard day at work and you come home. How many people put on the TV for hours and hours? It's
watch
ridiculous.
The sitcoms and stuff. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's before you start again. I'll just read this out because this is from a great site called Zen Gardener. And
right.
I know
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's soul-catching that are we recycled at death to remain in the matrix. And there's just a bit here about the SoulNet relies on the trick of the white light. It says we have been sort of told through various sources that the white light at death is something to head towards. Of course, Hollywood films such as Ghost promote this. And many people who have had these out-of-body near-death experiences mention this beautiful light. But it says here, yet what if, as David Icke and Wayne Bush, that's you, and others have suggested, the white light at death and light itself is in the context, is the trick. What if the light is the source of the deception? Like you mentioned on your site, Wayne, the moth going to the zapper, and getting zapped,
and that's one of the movies.
It makes sense, yeah, that's sort of what we're talking about here, that bright light, but you hear it millions of times and you read it in all the books, don't you, Wayne, and you see it in all the movies, the Hollywood movies. You die and you go to this beautiful white light, which of course would attract the human being.
There's a movie called A Bug's Life, and there's a bug, and he's heading towards the zapper, and he goes, somebody's like, said, don't go to the light. And he's like, I can't help it. It's so beautiful. And he flies into the light and gets zapped, and he, falls down, and it's in the movie. And there's also, Finding Nemo, where you have this angler fish. Well, this is a real fish, and it dangles down a light in front of itself and lures the fish to the light, and they come in, and then he's got these sharp teeth, and he just devours them,
Geez, I just think the difference is that we don't know we're being zapped. That's the problem.
Exactly.
Anyway, move on.
Okay, yeah, and on my website I've got a lot of movies up there, and I'm probably only going to touch on like 3 here.
As I said, it's good you put
sites.
the images of the movies up and you mix it in together, because it's heavy stuff, but you can see that as well.
You can even play most scenes.
Yeah, and then you can try and find some of the movies and check them out as well. So you've made it a very interactive site, which is good.
Yeah, I think it helps to balance out the tension that's in the material itself.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Movies and television programs use what is called predictive programming to program us by using fiction and the power of suggestion to create a desired outcome. The other thing I wanted to mention to you before I get into this is that, I think I did mention about the consent. Yeah, okay. One of the reasons they may be showing us these movies is like a subconscious consent. Okay.
Yes.
So the elite use symbols that speak on the subconscious level. DreamWorks Pictures logo and intro shows a boy on the moon with a fishing lure dangling into the waters below, presumably of Earth. And water is symbolic of the subconscious mind. And Jordan Maxwell says, quote, magic wands were always made out of the wood of a holly tree. It's made out of Hollywood. Hollywood is a druidic establishment, and the symbols, the words, the terms, the stories are designed. The director of Lucifer Rising, Kenneth Anger, says, making movies is casting spells. The National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, or NATS, which is Satan backwards, they give out the Emmy Awards, which is the gold angel holding up a golden globe. You also have the Golden Globe Awards. The Oscar statue, the Academy Awards, gets its name from Osir or Osiris. Both figures are golden, have their arms crossed across the chest, and hold a scepter. It shows that the elite are steeped in the study and practice of ancient religions and mythology, and also in occult symbolism. Columbia was a goddess and very prevalent across the world. You have the country named Columbia. You have the capital of America named District of Columbia. The United States was originally named Columbia. You have CBS, which is Columbia Broadcasting System. You have Columbia Pictures, Columbia Records. Columbia is represented as a goddess standing on a stepped pyramid and holding a torch above her head. Her image on the Columbia Pictures logo looks similar to the Statue of Liberty, holding up the torch of enlightenment. And as you mentioned, the Star Wars Death Star. I mean, he says, look at him. He's heading for that small moon. That's no moon. It's a space station. We're caught in a tractor beam, and it's pulling us in. It's the Death Star. And then you have lots of movie posters that feature a tunnel and lights, such as Gamer, Moon, Prometheus, Death Tunnel, Lord of Illusions, Hypnotist, Surrogates, and Moonraker. Also, the poster for the movie The Ring has the tagline, "Before you die, you see the ring," and depicts a solar eclipse. In the movie The Truman Show, The True Man Show, Truman Burbank's whole life is Sea Haven. It's staged and phony. His whole world, including the sun and moon, is a gigantic set inside a large dome controlled from the moon. By the way, the Egyptian equivalent for Satan is named Set. Could it be that the true man is inside a vast dome and that our world is controlled from a base on the moon? Truman, trying to conquer his fear and escape, set sail for blue sky only to collide into a giant wall. This movie was hailed by critics as original and daring. Why? Because it contains our true origins and is daring to tell us the truth. One of the movie's producers is a Rothschild. I don't know if he's from the family that started the European banking dynasty, but Rothschild was one of the producers. Also, Andrew Nicole wrote the screenplay for the movie and has since written and directed the movie The Host, in which a race of parasitic aliens go from planet to planet looking for hosts and threatens mankind by taking over their bodies and erasing their memories. They didn't have bodies, they needed bodies. In the mysterious 1960s TV series The Prisoner, produced by Everyman Pictures, every facet of a man's life is controlled. They try to strip the man's identity and refer to him only as number 6. He defiantly proclaims every week in the trailer, "I am not a number. I am a free man. I will not make any deals with you. I resigned. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered. My life is my own." The village featured a lunar control base reminiscent of the Truman Show. On one side, you can see a view of the Earth, and on the other, space. Frequently, a rover comes down from a tower and engulfs or suffocates and kills the people. From the controller of the village says, "Follow the signs." Notice the first sign says "Free Sea," and the next one says "Repair." In Transformers 3, Dark of the Moon, an alien presence is hidden in the craters on the back or dark side of the moon. And I'd like to mention a couple of Star Trek television episodes if I could. The Star Trek, the original series 2-part episode, The Menagerie, was reworked from the show's actual 1965 pilot episode named The Cage. The Menagerie was aired in November of 1966. A group of small telepathic aliens, very reminiscent of the little gray aliens that dominate today's commercial market, hold Captain Pike a prisoner. The Star Trek series, of course, went on to be a huge success. In a rare interview on the paranormal radio show Coast to Coast AM, Art Bell interviewed Leonard Nimoy, who played the alien character Spock. Leonard Nimoy told him, quote, "When we were making the Star Trek series, the first season, middle of the first season, some people came to me and they said, 'You may not know it, but you have been chosen as a kind of vessel to carry information to this civilization to help prepare this society for the coming of another civilization for alien arrival, and your character is a character designed to educate this public that there is nothing to fear, that it is possible to interact with other species.'" And I said, okay, it's okay with me if that's the case. These inorganic alien beings depicted in the pilot show are actually mentioned in the ancient Nagamadi Gnostic texts and are referred to as archons, which are mind parasites. Yes, the archons are archons. Researcher John Lash has written extensively about them. The pilot featured bulbous-headed little aliens in silver metallic costumes similar to the little gray aliens who could communicate telepathically and invade the thoughts of the crew. Spock says, "An illusion placed in our minds by this planet's inhabitants." And Boyce says, "It's a perfect illusion. It was a perfect illusion. They had us seeing just what we wanted to see. Human beings who'd survived with dignity and bravery, everything entirely logical, right down to the building of the camp, the tattered clothing, everything. Now let's be sure we understand the danger of this. The inhabitants of this planet can read our minds. They can create illusions out of a person's own thoughts, memories, and experiences, even out of a person's own desires. Illusions just as real and solid as this tabletop and just as impossible to ignore. You're better than a theater to them. They create the illusion for you. They watch you react, feel your emotions. They have a whole collection of specimens, descendants of life brought back long ago from all over this part of the galaxy. Kirk says, you keep talking about life, Mr. Spock. A chance for life? How? As a prisoner, caged, a zoo specimen, living the illusions that amuse his keepers? In Coda, the episode that you were talking about, it was an alien invaded Captain Janeway's cerebral cortex and tried to convince that she was dead and to come with him into his matrix of light, but she refused to go with him. The alien says, this is what my species does. At the moment just before death, one of us comes down to help you understand what's happening, to make the crossing over an occasion of joy. And Janeway says, and what is that? He says, our matrix, where your consciousness will live. I was being truthful when I said it was a place of wonder. It can be whatever you want it to be. Janeway says, then why didn't you tell me this from the beginning? Why pretend to be my father? He says, usually people are comforted to see their loved ones. It makes the crossing over a much less fearful occasion. I've done this many times, but I've never encountered someone so resistant. Janeway says, you're more like a vulture preying on people at the moment of their death when they're at their most vulnerable. Alien says, I've waited for you. I've been patient. She says, but your patience is wearing thin. What's the real reason you want me in that matrix? Somehow I don't think it has anything to do with everlasting joy. He says, you must go with me. She said, if you could force me to go, you'd have done it already. You need me to agree, don't you? I have to go voluntarily. He said, well, wouldn't that be better than standing here in this endless debate? She says, let me tell you this. We can stand here for all eternity. I will never choose to go with you. He says, you're in a dangerous profession, Captain. You face death every day. There'll be another time, and I'll be waiting. Eventually, you'll come into my matrix, and you will nourish me for a long, long time. And she tells him, go back to hell, coward. Afterwards, Captain Janeway discusses the encounter with one of her crew. And Chakotay says, I can't help thinking about it, that alien, his matrix. He was like the spider that has to lure a fly into his web. And Janeway says, or she asks, do you think it's possible that each of the near-death experiences we've heard about are the result of an alien inhabitation? And this is one that I've just added recently. It's Star Trek, the original series, episode 23. It's called Return of the Archons. And out on the street, there's these robed figures, and they reach Sulu and points his hollow stave at him. And Sulu stiffens, then relaxes with a smile on his face, and the transporter takes him away. And in the transporter room, Sulu says, they're wonderful. They're the sweetest, friendliest people in the universe. It's paradise, my friend, paradise. And back on the street, a man walks slowly past him, hand on his heart and smile on his face. He bows politely and carries on his way. And then Spock says, odd, the expression on that man's face, the mindlessness, vacant contentment. And this lawgiver says, you attacked the body, you have heard the word and disobeyed, you will be absorbed. It is clear that you simply did not understand. I will rephrase. You are ordered to accompany us to the absorption chambers. And they're in the chamber. Reger leads them into a building made of massive stones. He goes over to a corner and unwraps a flat panel which gives off light. Kirk says, a lighting panel. Those staffs, hollow tubes, antennae for some sort of broadcast power. What is it, Mr. Spock? And Spock says, strong power generations, Captain, near here, but radiating in all directions. The Reger says, I don't know, Captain. Some of us escaped the directives. Not many, but a few. It was that way when the first Archons came. Kirk says, the Archons, tell me about them. Reger said, they had invaded the body, but they resisted the will of Landru. You see, Landru had pulled them down from the skies. An image of a tall, elegant man draped in robes appears against the wall, and it's Landru, and he says, I am Landru. Spock says, projection, Captain, unreal. Landru says, you will be absorbed. Your individuality will merge into the unity of the good, and in your submergence into the common being of the body, you will find contentment and fulfillment. You will experience the absolute good. The lawgiver says, come. And Kirk goes with the lawgivers. Spock says, Dr. McCoy, what will happen to him? McCoy says, he goes to peace. He goes to joy, peace, and tranquility. He goes to meet Landru. Happiness is to all of us, blessed by Landru. And in the absorption chamber, Kirk is released and greets Spock with an inane smile on his face and says, joy to you, friend. Peace and contentment will fill you. You will know the peace of Landru. Kirk leaves, and Spock's fastened to the wall for his treatment. And the lights waver as the lawgivers leave Marplon to his work. Marplon says, have no fear, friend. The effect is harmless. My name is Marplon. I was too late to save your first two friends. They have been absorbed. Beware of them. In prison, Spock says, Captain, and Kirk says, peace and tranquility to you. And he whispers that because he's just faking. He says, are you all right? And Spock says, this is a soulless society, Captain. It has no spirit, no spark. All is indeed peace and tranquility. The peace of the factory, the tranquility of the machine, all parts working in unison. And then in this hall of audiences, Kirk says, Landru, we are the Archons. We are the Archons. We've come to speak. We are the Archons. We want to talk to you. And a projection appears on the far wall, and Landru says, all who saw you, all who know of your presence here must be excised. The memory of the body will be cleansed. Kirk says, listen to me. Spock says, useless, Captain, a projection. Kirk says, yes, Mr. Spock, let's have a look at the projector. And they both use their phasers to blast a hole in the wall. And as expected, there are nice, big, flashing and blinking lights. And Kirk says, of course, it had to be Landru. Spock says, a machine. This whole society is a machine's concept of perfection, peace, harmony. And Kirk says, but no soul. So the Archons are given orders by a computer or machine with a lighting panel, and humans are taken to absorption chambers and come back in a blissful trance, just like near-death experiencers, repeating mantra-like phrases like peace and tranquility and act as one, the body. It's also interesting to note they treat Kirk and crew as if they are a virus that is invading the body, when in reality, the Archons are like parasites that invade the mind. So that's my section on music. On movies. So I'd like to go on to music if I may.
It's very interesting, isn't it? It's crazy stuff. It's like through these movies they're telling you what they're doing to you, but at the same time they're giving you an escape route almost. They're giving you the solution.
I think they're kind of wearing you down. It's like people that like a husband that beats a wife and he'll eventually she just gives up. It's a continuous wearing down, and then once you've seen it a couple of times, in case the first time you're like it lets all your, it's like a catharsis, it lets you get rid of all your fears and stuff. Then after you've seen it a bunch of times, you're like, okay, well that's just the way it is.
But there's still that escape hatch, isn't there, that they're offering you? And I think if you're able to sort of see these films and work out on a deeper level sort of what's really going on and the deeper meanings of these things, and you can sort of sit back and dissect the information, work it out for yourself, and kind of come up with solutions.
It's great.
Like we're
giving us all these clues.
Yeah, I guess that's decoding the Matrix, isn't it? Because I guess they're relying on just saturating your mind, and you just, as you said, getting broken down as a human being and giving up, and then just sort of going through the rest of your life and having a good life and then dying. They're not relying on you to continually try to break down this stuff, and use your brain, which could be the way out, Wayne.
Very good point. Very good point. So music, the word music is derived from the muses of Greek mythology, which were goddesses, and they inspired men to create music. So we listen to the same, we have musical terms like hits and beats and the hook and the chorus. So we listen to the same songs, our favorites, over and over again, and we sing or chant the lyrics to the song like chants to a mantra. Talk about a programming tool. The repetitive nature of today's pop music is a perfect medium, like television, in which to do this. We even have genres of music called trance music and trap music. The redundant beat and hypnotic melody literally entrains our brain and makes us more receptive to the intended message. Black Sabbath has an album called We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll. John Lennon said, I've sold my soul to the devil. Bob Dylan on 60 Minutes television show said, I made a bargain with it, a long time ago, and I'm holding up my end. Ozzy Osbourne said, I don't know if I'm a medium for some outside source. Whatever it is, frankly, I hope it's not what I think. Satan. There are so many groups that have so many songs about the sun and moon, and keep in mind that the moon is a giant rock, okay? The rock group Queen chants, we will rock you. AC/DC says, for those about to rock, we salute you. Heads will roll and rock tonight. For those about to rock, we salute you. We're just a battery for hire with a guitar fire, ready and aimed at you. Pick up your balls and load up your cannon for a 21-gun salute. For those about to rock, fire, we salute you. April Wine sings, and remember the articles I read about the rolling magnetic fields. They sing the song called Roller. She says, she's a roller, a high roller baby. Bye bye, bye bye, bye bye. And they just sing bye bye over and over and over again. Florida Georgia Line, it's this country, features Luke Bryan as #1 song, and says, this is how we roll, this is how we do. We're burning down the night, shooting bullets at the moon. Baby, this is how we roll. Yeah, this is how we roll. The song Blinded by the Light, written by Bruce Springsteen, was the number one song for Man's Earth Band. It says, with a boulder on my shoulder, feeling kind of older, I tripped the merry-go-round. With the sun pleasing, sneezing, and wheezing, the calliope crashed to the ground. Some all-hot half-shot was heading for the hot spot, snapping his fingers and clapping his hands. Save the buckshot, turn up the band. Chorus. He was blinded by the light, revved up like a deuce, another runner in the night, blinded by the light. Some brimstone baritone, anti-cyclone, Rolling Stone preacher from the East. He says, dethrone the dictaphone, hit it in its funny bone. That's where they expect at least. Some new-mown chaperone standing in the corner all alone, watching the young girls dance. And some fresh-stone moonstone was messing with his frozen zone to remind him of the feeling of romance. They repeat the chorus, and little Early Pearly came by in her curly whirly and asked me if I needed a ride. I jumped up, turned around, spit in the air, fell on the ground, and asked him which was the way back home. He said, take a right at the light, keep going straight until night, and then you're on your own. Now in Zanzibar, a shooting star was riding in a sidecar, humming a lunar tune. Yes, and the avatar said, blow the bar, but first remove the cookie jar. We're going to teach these boys to laugh too soon. And some kidnapped handicap was complaining he caught the clap from some mousetrap he bought last night. While he unsnapped his skull cap, and between his ears I saw a gap and figured he'd be all right. He was blinded by the light, cut loose like a deuce, another runner in the night, blinded by the light. Mama always told me not to look into the sights of the sun, but oh mama, that's where the fun is. I was blinded. Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. This album's been on the charts for 10 years or more. It's crazy.
Great album. Though.
It's my favorite probably of all time.
Keep putting it on, it never gets old, does it?
Oh, it's great. I'm kind of working on one myself, with some of my material. But, so anyway, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon seems to recap our lives as it starts with a heartbeat and Speak to Me, and which leads to the song Breathe. And goes on to Time, and then the reprise of Breathe, they say, far away across the field, the tolling of the iron bell calls the faithful to their knees to hear these softly spoken magic spells. And then they have a great gig in the sky, and he says, I'm not afraid of dying. And it ends with Brain Damage and Eclipse. And in Brain Damage, they said, I'll see you on the dark side of the moon. And in Eclipse, they say, everything under the sun is in tune, but the sun is eclipsed by the moon. They also have Welcome to the Machine, where they say, welcome, my son, welcome to the machine. Where have you been? It's all right, and we know where you've been. You've been in the pipeline, filling in time. So welcome to the machine, son, welcome to the machine. What did you dream? It's all right, we told you what to dream. And then two of the biggest songs of all time, I can tell rock music in case you can't tell. I like rock music. But Stairway to Heaven and Hotel California. And they have 7 very similar things and common themes in the song. And one's a lost or confused traveler. Another was a path or road. You got a lady shining a light to show the way. You have heaven or hell. You have the wind, a spirit, and a piper or voices calling. In Stairway to Heaven, it says, there's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold, and she's buying a stairway to heaven. And it's whispered soon, if we all call the tune, then the piper will lead us to reason. Yes, there are 2 paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on. Your head is humming and it won't go in case you don't know. The piper's calling you to join him. Dear lady, can't you hear the wind blow? And did you know your stairway lies on the whispering wind? And as we wind on down the road, our shadows taller than our soul, there walks a lady we all know who shines white light and wants to show how everything still turns to gold. And if you listen very hard, the tune will come to you at last. When all is one and one is all, you had to be a rock and not to roll. And I just remember that Robert Plant basically channeled this song. It's automatic writing, right? Okay. And then Hotel California says, on a dark desert, Did you want to say something?
No, that's such a big song, isn't it? It's very deep.
Yeah. It really is.
People go along to the song and, it's a common song. It goes right throughout everybody's lives, no matter what age you are. You can't escape that.
I think it's
music,
considered the number one rock song of all time.
Yeah, and the lyrics are so much deeper than we originally thought, huh?
Oh, for sure. So Hotel California says, on a dark desert highway, cool wind in my hair, warm smell of colitas rising up through the air. Up ahead in the distance, I saw a shimmering light. My head grew heavy and my sight grew dim. I had to stop for the night. There she stood in the doorway. I heard the mission bell, and I was thinking to myself, this could be heaven or this could be hell. Then she lit up a candle and she showed me the way. We are all just prisoners here of our own device, and in the master's chambers they gathered for the feast. They stab it with their steely knives, but they just can't kill the beast. Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. I had to find the passage back to the place I was before. Relax, said the night man. We are programmed to receive. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. So both songs mention a traveler on a road who's accosted by a lady shining a white light who wants to show the way, or a piper or voices calling you to join them in what could be heaven or hell. So this idea of a piper ties into the section that I call the trickster god. And you have the Egyptian god, Ptah, was considered the father or creator of the world, and he, along with Thoth, laid the world egg. He's often described as an abstract form of the self-created one who made the universe either by the wish of his heart and by his tongue. He was the patron of sculptors, painters, builders, and carpenters and other craftsmen, and was thought to have invented masonry. In fact, he may have formed the template for the idea of God as the great architect. I'm going to skip on down here. He was depicted as a mummified man with unbound arms holding a staff, incorporating the Ankh. But anyway, you have, these different trickster gods. And one of the key attributes and purposes of the trickster is as a tester, or one who makes sure you're ready before allowing you further along the path. And you have these different trickster gods like Enki or Ea in Sumerian, Hermes, which is Mercury, and Kokopelli. Loki was the Norse trickster god. You have Dagon or Oannes. Pan was the Greek god, goat god of the forest and of chaos. He played panpipes, much like Peter Pan. That's where the words panic and pandemonium all come from, and the frying pan. And Pan, like Lucifer, was demonized and equated with the devil. Satan being represented as a satyr, a goat-like creature, which is also phonetically similar to Saturn. But while thinking about this, it dawned on me that the word satire, S-A-T-I-R-E, is also derived from satyr, S-A-T-Y-R, and would help bolster my argument that our prison life here on Earth, although very negative at times, may all be just part of a big satire being perpetrated by the representation of the dark side of our being. The satire is a playful simulation and jest of a real situation. So these pipers, you have Pan is shown in many stories and movies, such as the beginning of the Stairway to Heaven. They starts out with a pan flute, or it says the piper's calling you to join him, right? And then Disney's Peter Pan was another fun-loving Sylvan who had panpipes. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, and a pepper is of the genus Piper. The Pied Piper tricked the townspeople and led all the children into a giant rock or mountain, and is where we get the phrase "pay the piper." Pink Floyd has the Piper at the Gates of Dawn. The Beatles, Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band. Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play. You're such a lovely audience, we'd like to take you home with us. And Dr. Pepper, Barry Manilow wrote the jingle, I'm a pepper, you're a pepper, wouldn't you like to be a pepper too? Pepsi has a slogan, join the Pepsi generation. Van Morrison has a song called Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and it says, the wind and the willows and the piper at the gates of dawn, the song dream happened, and the cloven-hooved piper played in that holy ground where they felt the awe and wonder, and they all were unafraid of the great god Pan. There's the phrase, pay the piper, so perhaps the song Pay the Devil by Van Morrison insinuates the piper is the devil. You have pips, which a pip is one of the spots on a non-court playing card, game dice or dominoes, whose value corresponds to the total count of pips. Like in backgammon or board games, it can be referred to as a game piece or a man. And the first pope was St. Peter, so you have the papal Pope Peter, the piper pipes the pips through the pipe in order to pop them for pep. Pipe means multicolored, and a band is a range of frequencies like an AM band or FM band. So the piper's band could be white light, which comprises the full spectrum of colors banded together. And of course, the Dark Side of the Moon album cover, we were talking about Dark Side of the Moon, it shows a prism. It's got this white beam, and then it's broken up into all the different colors of the rainbow, right? So consider the white light tunnel, or the pipe, the tunnel of the near-death experience. And we'll talk about that first, but in a bit, but I'd like to talk first about aliens, if that's okay.
That's great, yeah. Keep moving.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Michio Kaku, I mean, not everybody believes in aliens, but, he's the author of Theoretical Physics, and he's a teacher at the University of New York. This is an ABC News quote. He says, "In my mind, there's no question that they're out there. My career is well established. My textbooks are required reading in all the major capitals on planet Earth. If you want to become a physicist to learn about the unified field theory, you read my books. Therefore, I'm in a position to say, yes, most likely they're out there, perhaps even visited, perhaps on our moon." Stephen Hawking said, "Of course it is possible that UFOs really do contain aliens, as many people believe, and the government is hushing it up." Albert Einstein said, "Given the millions of billions of Earth-like planets, life elsewhere in the universe without a doubt does exist. In the vastness of the universe, we are not alone." Apollo 14 astronaut Captain Edgar Mitchell said, "We all know that UFOs are real. All we need to ask is where do they come from and what do they want?" Even the Bible in Genesis 6 says the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of came into the daughters of men and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown, and of course other translations translate them as giants. An ancient Gnostic text expert, John Lash, says, "The entities they called archons appear to be identical to the ETs of modern ufology. Both gray and reptilian types are explicitly described in the codices. I would estimate that up to 1/5 of the core material in the NHC, that's Nag Hammadi codices, concerns the archons, their origin, methods, and motives." So the demiurge is a Gnostic term for a supernatural being imagined as creating or fashioning the world in subordination to the supreme being, and sometimes regarded as the originator of evil. In the Gnostic text, Sophia is an ion from source and accidentally created the demiurge by mistake without her consort. It was not created in full and was described as a lion-faced dragon. He thought he was the only being and proclaimed himself God. Sophia realized her mistake and came down to inform the demiurge. The demiurge then surrounded Sophia and held her in chaos and stole her light power. Sophia repents and is forgiven by Source. Source sends help to take back the light power from the demiurge. In the meantime, the demiurge created the human body but cannot get it to stand. The help from Source convinces the demiurge they must breathe life into Adam to get him to move. When he does, the light power goes into Adam. Thus, Adam was divine because of the light power. This light power sort of has similar overtones to the Holy Spirit. It's in every human. The archons supposedly were produced not in full and are unable to hold the light power. So this could be similar to why the Greys have no soul. They're all sociopaths. Light was part of the demiurge's system and includes the stolen light. Thus, it's a false light, or certainly the wrong light to go toward when you die, as it just puts you back in this prison system. The Gnostic texts do speak of impure light. It looks spectacular, but it's still a copy. Maybe counterfeit light's a better term. The light that people go to is false light. It's just a matter of taking it further to realize it's a copy of the pure divine light from Source. The light we want is that one. That light is divine light compared to the counterfeit light. So in broad overview, the demiurge's realms are a copy of the real thing. He's stolen light from Sophia, so they have light to use. The real light is from Source, and those light realms would be set up similar. So the demiurge is a small bubble copy of a larger bubble and is inside that bubble. To get out of the demiurge does not mean reabsorbing with Source. Far from it, you'll have eternity to explore and learn in the real heavens once we get out of the false copy. Each realm is a little further, and there's a barrier, and beyond that's the abyss. This immortal being wanted to try and create outside this eternal realm on her own. So she tried to make a copy of things in the abyss to play around. It was outside the protection of the eternal realms and thus was hidden in the darkness. What she created was not exactly right. It contained in it matter in the form of a shadow that came to life. And this God went down to what she created. She was attacked by the archons. They attacked her just like parasites, draining her energy, changing her thinking. Over and over, she would have to cry for help from the eternal realms, who eventually rescued her, gave her enough power to get back to the outside the range the archons can attack. Her breathing into the spirit by blowing symbolizes the demiurge taking her life power. And the Gnostics refer to these archons as a parasite, an abortion, an unformed mass, lion-headed beast, serpent, dragon. It says clearly they can shapeshift, and they're beings controlled by a parasite. Anunnaki, gods of the past, and rulers, the Greys, they're controlled by maybe this archon parasite. And the archons are inorganic, as they say, meaning they are not physical in a way we can see them. It seems there are levels to them, some being the equivalent of a mosquito to extremely persuasive shape-shifting entities. The key is they all come from their source, the demiurge, and are inorganic also. And so these archons are those influenced, possessed, or taken over by the parasite, but are actively controlling humanity. And without bodies, they have no source of energy and will perish. They need us to exist, and that is a weakness in them. I could quote a couple of texts from the Gnostics, but I think I'll pass on that one. Unless you wanted me to. One of them is like, now the eternal realm of truth has no shadow outside it, for the limitless light is everywhere within it, but its exterior is shadow, which has been called the name darkness. From it there appeared a force presiding over the darkness, and the forces that came into being subsequent to them called the shadow. But they go on and they say it was the abyss, it was a shadow, and so that's these archons are these parasites are like these shadow. You've heard of the shadow people or shadow beings?
Always, yeah.
So
seem to David Icke said that these things can attach almost to your chakra through negative emotions, even negative sexual things, or anything like that's negative that human beings if you have a day-to-day view of the world and you're pissed off or whatever, that type of thing, it's sort of a frequency seems attached to you, so they're almost ghosting us our whole lives, but we can't see them. But you can, you can feel it if you know.
I've talked to like several people that can see these shadowy beings. Actually, you know what? I had an ex-girlfriend and we had a photograph of her sister, and we're looking at the photograph and there's this huge shadow being like 7-8 foot tall right next. I mean, it was just like, what the hell is that? I mean, it was very clear. You look at the photo, it's, oh man. So anyway, here's the quote. It says, now matter is made of the bile of the shadow. Now, as for that jealousy, it was found to be an abortion without any spirit. Like a shadow, it came into existence in a vast watery substance. Then the bile that had come into being out of the shadow was thrown into a part of chaos. Since that day, a watery substance has been apparent, and what sank within it flowed away, being visible in chaos. As with a woman giving birth to a child, our superfluities flow out. Just so matter came into being out of shadow and was projected apart, and it did not depart from chaos. Rather, matter was in chaos, being in a part of it. So, they're saying that the matter that composes this world was made from the bile of the shadow. And of course, a synonym of bile is vile, which is also synonymous with evil and veil. So these are anagrams. It says that the shadow exists because of the veil hiding it. Yep. And in the eternal realms, they are filled with light. So anyway, Carlos Castanedas talked about the parasites. He said, I did see some strange fleeting black shadow projected on the foliage of the trees. It was either a shadow going back and forth or various fleeting shadows moving side to side or straight up in the air. They looked like fat black fish to me, enormous fish. It was as if gigantic swordfish were flying in the air. I was engrossed in the sight, and finally it scared me. It became too dark to see the foliage, and I could still see the fleeting black shadows. Now the shaman told Carlos the best way to rid yourself of it is inner silence and thought discipline, meaning the second you feel agitation, anxiety, anything like that, not to allow it to manifest in reality. You may feel agitated, but you don't allow it to manifest into actions onto others or yourself. Say you get frustrated in traffic, you get impulses of aggravation, you're bored and agitated, then you start thinking negative thoughts of others, and maybe someone calls you and you start complaining about the traffic and it'll never end, and the whole thing's an illusion, all caused by these impulses. Say an accident occurs because someone was upset and not paying attention, causing the accident and hurting others. Then traffic gets worse and negativity is rising. They are the source of the whole illusion, and it feeds themselves. So the discipline comes in seeing it as an illusion and not allowing the illusion to dictate what you think or feel. To be aware of them and above it is the only way to keep them from taking over your life.
Your life, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, as I said to you before, when I had terrible nightmares when I was little, right through my years there, but Garth knows all too well, I had horrible, horrific night terrors. And I remember being like, very little, maybe 10, 12, 15, these types of things, actually being pulled off my bed and dragged by my feet. These types of things, but I remember the dreams that I had, I mostly wouldn't remember. I'd get up in the morning and my brothers would say, do you remember what you did last night? I wouldn't know because they were just black. But I do remember in fragments sort of having these nightmares and waking up and staring at the corner of the room or straight ahead and seeing large shadowy figures, sort of thin. I remember that right through my early years, seeing those figures. So, and not knowing if I'm awake or still asleep, but pretty much sure I'm awake with the heartbeat going so much, and actually staring at them. And they would sort of be like a flame, you know what I mean? So you tried focus my eyes on them, but they would sort of shift around as you were looking at them in the darkness. So it was sort of almost like there wasn't anything there, but it was really crazy, you know?
I could never see any shadow beings, but when I was like 19 or 20, and I think it was like my first year, I was all alone in an apartment, and I remember lying in bed at night, and all of a sudden, I thought we were having an earthquake. Like the bed was shaking, the whole room was shaking, and I remember thinking, oh my God. And I started praying to Jesus, you know, I don't want to die, you know, help me, whatever. And then the next day I'm thinking, oh, I can't wait to find out what it was on the Richter scale, and people are going to be talking about it. And I asked my mom, nothing. I asked the person that lived below me, nothing. And so like a little bit later, I realized I was reading books, and they were saying that could have been the onset to an out-of-body experience. Like one of the symptoms is bed shaking, but it could have been one of these shadow beings that wanted to take me, right? You know.
Well, it depends what sort of maybe mood you were in, where you were at that time. I guess.
Remember being, maybe it's possible.
I guess it could be. As I said, it just depends. Yeah, it's crazy, you know. But they're right throughout history. The shadow beings, they've always been there. If you want to take a look, it's something you can't just push to the side. It's right throughout our culture and religions, and people saying they see these things. I've seen them myself. But I guess
it was very clear right there.
Yeah.
So, and I'd like to talk about some near-death experiences with aliens. Here's one that says, I was taken to special entities who looked like the usual Greys, but they had lots of wrinkles on their faces. They called themselves the Council and said they were part of a group called Soul Recyclers, helping souls to reincarnate. Brian S. said, and this is all on nderf.org, Brian S. said, this person appeared only as a huge presence that was perceivable only as waves of distortion, shielded from my consciousness so I could not see him or her directly. For an example of this, look at the movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger and pay attention to how the alien looks when it is cloaked. That is the effect I was seeing. I was not threatened by this and don't want to influence the reader utilizing my movie example of a dreadful cutthroat alien, but only wanted to provide a reference to the visual distortion used. There were no feelings of danger, only a realization of this presence. Suzanne B. said, I saw televisions with pictures that could be controlled by an operator. I know these to be computers now. I met with beings that looked a lot like the drawings that I have seen of aliens. The old lady was there, as were two alien beings. The communication was full but quick. I would need a book to explain it. It is of my understanding that all will be okay. I knew the old lady. She was my guide at the time. The two alien beings are of my soul family, and I communicate with them still. S.J. said, I encountered a definite being or a voice clearly of mystical or unearthly origin. I saw several beings of human-like appearance in their legs and ankles, which was all I could see of them. They were very white or chalky-looking, not the white of humans. At first, I believed from the color that they were possibly the gray aliens, but then I believed they were gods or religious-type beings because of the setup of there being a throne in the room, and the room was very bright white, and they were wearing robes. They were communicated with me very minimally in some type of wordless telepathy, just of understandings. Cameron H. said, when I came out of my coma after flatlining and was telling my family of the aliens that were floating around my hospital bed, James N. talked about an NDE with like a worm or a snake. He said, I was taken to see a worm working controls of big cylinders that had every animal and people you could think of, and they were going down the cylinders from adults to babies. Fish also. I remember seeing all kinds of fish. As I was walking towards the worm, I heard a voice say, you go back and be a better man. I was told by many the light was the creator God, and the worm was an angel giving rebirth. Here's somebody else that said, drawn to a joyous white light and up through a layer of personalities with tails like comets. Came into a space where I was tended to by silver, featureless creatures with thin limbs and conical inverted heads. They communicated telepathically and laid me down. I was told I could stay if I wished. I was tempted as I was ecstatic. When I decided against it, I was sucked down a tunnel. The white light stayed in my peripheral vision for 2 hours after the event. He said I was left with a sense of mission regarding spiritual healing. Here's some abduction, alien abduction accounts. This one is Betty Andres and Luca from Raymond Fowler's book, Watchers 2. She says, we're running toward the light now. Oh, I can see the elder is changing into a white light being, and the gray is changing into a light blue one as we're running closer to the light. Oh, I'm starting to change into a golden colored light. Oh, this is beautiful. Oh, this is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Oh, there is such love. Oh, there is such peace. I'm just engulfed in light and blending into that light. Oh, it's just fantastically beautiful. It's just so much love, so much peace, and so wonderful. It's so wonderval. Val Valerian wrote about this, about the Greys being able to store energy. He says, the Greys are able to detect and perceive emotional responses from humans. Some of these responses, or the frequencies involved, the aliens find distasteful. In order to minimize their exposure to undesirable emotional wavelengths, the Greys will test humans and apply behavior modification techniques to block specific emotional states. Likewise, they will encourage emotional states in the child that will result in emotional wavelengths that they can use. The Greys have the ability to feed on this energy. They have the ability to confine this emotional energy to containers that have internal fields that will bottle the energy, much like a magnetic bottle will hold a plasma. The effect of the use of this energy is like vitamins on the Greys. It gives them a boost in vitality. The Greys also have the ability to pick up and gather the energy emitted through the eyes. David Jacobs, in his book Secret Life, said this about alien mind scans. He says, when an abductee asks, what are you doing? He may answer with a cryptic, you know what we are doing. When an abductee asks if they will ever stop doing this to her, the taller being might respond with, you are very special to us, or this is very important and you are helping us. At times, the taller being will perform the physical exam himself, but mind scan is the focus of his attention. Mind scan entails deep, penetrating staring into the abductee's eyes. Abductees commonly feel that data of some sort is being extracted from their minds. We do not know what the information is, how it is extracted, or what the beings do with it. One abductee thinks that they transfer it to other beings' minds. My eyes are open, but my mind is sort of gone. I have no will. I am absorbed and not fighting it. Karen Morgan. Some people say that they feel that the taller being is stealing their memories. Bonding during mind scan, the taller being can elicit specific emotions in the abductee, such as fear and terror. Often he will create an instant rush of pleasurable emotions in the abductee that bonds her to him. As he stares deeply into her eyes, she may feel that the taller being is really a good individual. She wants to help him. She wants to be with him. She wants to give herself to the being's program to help in any way she can. She does not want to leave. Sometimes there is a romantic and even sexual quality to these thoughts. Some women say they love the taller being. Love. By love, do you mean directed toward him or just sort of amorphous? It's for everything. Are you looking into his eyes? Also, he makes me. So he looks into your eyes and you get this sort of rush of pleasurable feelings again. Yes. When you have this rush of pleasurable feelings, is there sort of a sexual component to this as well? Yes, it is because of the situation of the vulnerability of it all. I think that's what he's projecting. And Bud Hopkins wrote about alien orchestrated love relationships and abductees. He said, in a few cases, a bonding with an alien being or spirit guide progressed into a love obsession where it was discovered later that the spirit guide turned out to be an alien masquerading as a lover. Speaking of the shadow beings, I have somebody who said, yeah, the one my son saw was 7 feet. The one I saw was short, but it was like it was coming out of the wall. You can feel them even when you don't see them. They cause dense feelings of dread. They are the archons. The guy I interviewed that had the near-death experience and met the demiurge, I asked him about him. He said, I saw the same shadow being twice, very tall, over 7 feet tall, wide shoulders. There was a different witness during each occurrence, one in the late afternoon and one at 4:30 a.m. Not sure what they are, but very intimidating or menacing looking. The outline was that of someone with slacks and maybe a jacket or sharply stretched long-sleeve shirt. So I interviewed him. I told you about how I met him and everything, but he met this demiurge. And when I first met him, I told you about that too, about how he said it was near the moon. Yeah. But he went on to the light and he described the light as square. It's a big spaceship. It's square. I mean, I'm looking at it. Well, it could have been rectangular, but the perspective of it was so huge and giant that it had a top, a bottom, sides, and it could have been a rectangle, but it seemed like a square cube, whatever. And this is pre-Star Trek Borg, you know. I understood this before it was square like a big, gigantic metal spaceship. It's floating in space, and it ain't a planet, you know. It ain't round, okay? And it's got that door, the inverse. If you want to call beings from a spaceship aliens, I don't know. After being shown highlights of his life, the light asked him what he thought about his life, and did he learn enough about love. When he said that, well, you know, I never got married, I never had children, he maybe perceived as an inadequate answer, but he was kicked out of heaven and found himself lining up to return to earth. Just before he hit Earth's atmosphere, he said, I'm like right in front of this, Norman Rockwell looking guy, big, long, flowing white hair, big white beard. He had burning red eyes, brassy face, brass-colored face. He's translucent, kind of like the gold up in, heaven, whatever you want to call that place. And he's severe. I mean, this guy's not somebody that you want to mess with. I mean, he's just full of serious intent. I mean, very, very serious guy. And he's got all these star maps, and he's showing them to me, and I'm like absorbing it. And he's trying to explain everything to me, and I'm having to make some agreements before I come into a body. And he's showing me why. This star's aligned with this galaxy and this planet and this, that, and it's like these maps. He opened up some new books for me, and he showed me how we interact with one another. And one of them was waves. We're in waves, and the waves go across the whole Earth, and they're like imagine ocean waves, and there are waves that go across the entire Earth of light and darkness. And he showed me how he was like a filter for the Earth to cause the waves. In other words, he caused the waves by his presence of darkness. It's like imagine putting up a veil in front of the window, and some of it goes through and somehow putting the veil caused the light and the darkness on the Earth to pull up. The light pulls up and the darkness pulls down, and so the whole Earth was like a big round ball of waves that move across. The light pulled up and the darkness pulled down, and it was a perfect balance to him. And he was trying to explain to me how he was superior to the light. Okay? How was he superior? Because he had this thing balanced. Everybody lined up for miles and miles to come here because they wanted to experience what he has. And what he has is this perfect balance. 2/3 light and 1/3 darkness. It's like a counterbalance, the yin and yang things. But the lightness, it's more light than it was dark, and it's not always exactly in balance. What he was describing is that he needed me to do some things to keep the balance of light up, because if there aren't enough people doing light things, then the balance gets too wonkered and it gets too dark, and it's like game over. Everybody goes home, it's done. And he has to not. I mean, people call him the devil. How can a guy be the devil who wants good things to happen, that wants light things to happen, love, kindness, joy? He ain't the devil, I've heard. Yeah, the motive is totally insincere. It's just because he wants to prove that he's better, than the light. He says, look, I got all these people that come down here, trillions of souls, spirits, they all come down here, they line up. He tells a story of his failure, and why would he do that? He ultimately concedes, He's in a chess game, and he starts losing, and when he starts losing, and I'll tell you when, there's going to be a period of darkness, and he showed me this. Now, this is a little bit different how he showed me, okay? I saw at least 3 books. 2 of them, they blend together somehow. However, one of them I literally saw from a camera outside the Earth, a fixed camera, like it never moves. And it's there, and from this fixed camera, I saw the Earth pop up there. I saw it go through different phases. First, it was beautiful. It wasn't completely light, but it was beautiful, pristine. Then it starts to get a little darker, and it gets lighter. That 2/3 balance thing, he's showing me how good of a game he's played, the chess player he is, right? He's showing me how he manipulates things. When things get a little bit out of whack over here, he lets more light in, more of your light folks, those who like to do good things, love, kindness, joy, compassion, mercy. He starts letting those of more of those in, right? Because he wants to keep his little chess game going, and he's doing this, and then there's the ones that are pulling down, and they're like the spirits that cling to us, okay? So all the while you're thinking he's Mr. Nice Guy. No way. Imagine if you were a computer programmer and they have statements called if-then-else statements. Imagine that if there's this one plan that he showed you, and if you do all of this, everything you dream of will come true, and it will be more or less painful, and you'll walk through life, and you'll be, the savior of the world, and you'll get to be the hero, I asked him if they give you any percentages on this, and he says, no percentages, but what I saw was there were branches that went off to either side. If this happens, then this happens, and if, and then, and then, and then, and then, and then, and then. Yeah, but I was looking at, and I asked him, so what about the else's, else? He said, yeah, but I was looking at the thens. I'm going to do the thens, and then everything's going to work out great. What I saw is that, especially when I saw the pillars in heaven, I saw that you just adjust your perception of it a little bit, and you can just see the different stories popping out at you. And so I think we're creating stories. I think that's what we do, and I think they're interesting stories, and I think that we're better for it. I really do. And the demiurge is sitting there going, yay, yeah, he's right, I'm right, because we do. We go through, everybody says you've got to experience darkness before you can experience light. And I don't know if that's true exactly, but here's what I do know, that when we're over there, we're insensitive to our pain here. We're insensitive to it really because we don't feel it. We can intellectualize it over there, and I intellectualized it when I was shown the plan that I was going to get to do. I could intellectualize it. I think I got to do better than Z plan, but I can do A plan. But it was an intellectual exercise. I didn't realize I'd have to. He's told me that these angels, the so-called angels, play us like video games, right? We're their characters, and they're trying to get us to conform to our contracts that we make. So he's admitting he fails. He did, and why would he do that except that he's saying, look, he fails with his two-thirds light strategy. This is, by the way, this is the 666, because two-thirds is 66.6%. He says it doesn't work eventually because the world gets out of control. They don't want to reincarnate or whatever you want to call it. They won't sign the contracts anymore. When you're a chess player, I'm a chess player, okay, and if I'm playing against a computer and I know I'm going to lose, I'm behind a piece, I might as well quit. There are people sending souls here every single day, and they have no concept of our pain and suffering, and they just keep doing it. They line up, get in line. They have no concept that they're going to sit there and drop into a body that's going to hurt other people. And you do, everybody. I don't care who you are, you're going to hurt somebody. If you walk through a field, you're going to step on a bug, you know what I mean? You're going to hurt somebody. If you have a baby, you're certainly going to hurt somebody because that woman is going to be hurt by that. If you're a woman, you're going to hurt that man. It's going to happen. It happens. We hurt each other. That's what we do. But if we can do anything in this world that makes it so we get towards that place where we're not hurting each other. I'm talking about in that beautiful world that I saw where it's pure light. It's not pure light. It's a very, very filled with light. It's show mercy, show kindness, show compassion. If you can do those things, in this world, it's like an entrance into that world. If you can't do that here, you don't love that baby that's you. If you're cruel to yourself, if you're unkind to yourself, unmerciful to yourself, and you don't get those things figured out in this life, sometime you're probably going to line up and do it again. If you sit there and abuse yourself, hurt yourself, I'm not even talking about the people that go out and hurt other people. I mean, it's easy to say I'm not hurting people. I don't go out and run over people on the road. I don't back up over people or treat people poorly at work. What if you have this little battle going on inside your head, and there's a part inside our brain inside that stores those thoughts that works on that actual aspect. It says things like, I hate you, I want to die, you're stupid. These little bitty part of your brain is right on the other side of don't put your finger in the fire. There's one side that does something to make you not stick your finger in the fire, not to put your finger in an electrical socket. The opposite side of the brain. They have a name for it, and I should have looked it up, but I wanted you to hear it straight from my heart because I know it. I fought it for 20 years. I would help everybody else, give the shirt off my back, literally give, volunteer, did all kinds of things, and those are good things. I'm not going to say they're not going to get you into heaven because that they're not going to get into heaven because they will. They do. The good stuff you do does get into heaven. It gets into your life record. It's recorded forever and ever and ever. But am I going to get back in that line again? Well, we can participate in this world and others, and I'll tell you how that works out. I saw the very end, and I'm talking about this demiurge or whatever you want to call it, the guy who does all the contracts. He records everything. He's like the producer, okay? And he's producing this show. It's his show, and if you don't sign up for his contract, you don't enter. There's another near-death experiencer's account that I ran across on Ender that strongly suggests he maybe met the demiurge too. He said, it goes by the name of Paul, and he wrote, what I experienced in the afterlife is nothing like anything I've ever heard associated with any religion or church. In fact, quite the opposite. Religions teach of a false God that is not the true God of the afterlife, but probably a demonic entity in itself who they pose as the true God. Meanwhile, they are binding and captivating the masses to their spiritual destruction. I don't think this world is structured to know or care what the truth is. In fact, I believe that the truth is countered at every turn and intentionally kept hidden by our base-level controllers and manipulators, who are the stewards of darkness. They wouldn't want us to have the knowledge that we hold claim to absolute freedom, which is accompanied by an enormous power and true liberty. They would rather we look down on ourselves as faulty and defective and in need of help and management by the enlightened ones. And maybe we are all too willing to believe it. This world is all about slavery and bondage, which begins in the spirit realm, where unaware humans aren't as savvy as our adversaries. In truth, as long as we strive to be kind, then we are perfectly imperfect, without the need of correction and management from our evil slave masters with their perfecting of humans' elimination scheme. What you thought was your advocate was your enemy, and a very cruel enemy at that. Moreover, the supreme being that I experienced and saw was nothing like what we're told. God and your powers are more powerful than you, so do what you're told for your own good. If you don't do what God or your rulers tell you, there will be consequences. If you rebel against God or your rulers, you will be punished. God needs to correct you because history tells us that your kind are idiots and cause problems. Your rulers need to correct you because history tells us that you're idiots and cause problems. Believe in their religion story or you're evil. Believe in their patriotic story or you're evil. The bottom line is you are an absolute moron, born defective, and you are prone to incredible disaster unless you are tightly monitored, managed, and under the strictest of authority by someone who is smarter and more powerful than you. I guess we just ought to sit down and shut up and be thankful that we're not in jail or in hell. God was all like, oops, when your kind was created. Religion is infiltration for nationalistic programming under the guise of independent benevolence. Moreover, religion is a mechanism for stirring and capturing adoration for forces of darkness, thereby empowering the same. It is the biggest scam going and allows our slave masters the ability to program entire continents of people. The church is the initial dove through which the rulers become the lion. This is spiritual captivity and bondage through mass deception, all in the name of love and care. This type of deception is just dripping with glee-inducing invisible foes from the spirit realm. People lap up this confusing garbage because they are desperate for answers due to their incredibly confusing circumstances of being human. How did we get here? Why are we here? What happens to us when we die? People are taught to fear God, which causes people to live in fear. When people are in fear, they are easier to control. This world is all about having power over other people in the very essence of evil. That was somebody that had a near-death experience, and I'd love to interview that guy. His name is Paul. Yeah. There's no link.
That is exactly hit the nail on the head. That's what we've been talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah. It almost sounds like something I would have written.
Yeah, no, well, it connects, doesn't it? You know?
It really does.
It hums inside when you hear it, you know? It's finding the key to open up the door, you know? That makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Yeah. So let's talk about the light. Poltergeist, the movie, it says, Mommy is waiting for you in the light. Don't even look at the light. Tell her to stay away from the light. Albert Einstein said, all the 50 years of conscious brooding have brought me no closer to answer the question, what are light quanta? Of course, today every rascal thinks he knows the answer, but he is deluding himself. For the rest of my life, I will reflect on what light is. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is an instruction manual on how to navigate planes in the afterlife, says, be not fond of the dull, smoke-colored light from hell. Remember the clear light, the pure, clear, white light from which everything in the universe comes, to which everything in the universe returns, the original nature of your own mind, the natural state of the universe unmanifest. Let go into the clear light. Trust it. Merge with it. It is your own true nature. It is home. In the Bible, 2 Corinthians 11:14 says, and no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. And here's a Gnostic text that talks about false light used by Satan. It's from the book of Adam and Eve. It says, he then placed his throne near the mouth of the cave because he could not enter into it by reason of their prayers. And he shed light into the cave until the cave glistened over Adam and Eve, while his hosts began to sing praises. And Satan did this in order that when Adam saw the light, he should think within himself that it was a heavenly light, and that Satan's hosts were angels, and that God had sent them to watch at the cave and to give him light in the darkness. No sooner had Adam said this than an angel from God appeared unto him in the cave, who said unto him, Adam, fear not, this is Satan and his hosts. He wished to deceive you as he deceived you at first. For the first time he was hidden in the serpent, but this time he has come to you in the similitude of an angel of light, in order that when you worshipped him, he might enthrall you in the very presence of God. Here's another example of false light. After the natural structure of the immortal beings had completely developed out of the infinite, a likeness emanated from Pistis. It is called Sophia. It exercised volition and became a product resembling the primeval light, a copy of the real light. And immediately her will manifested itself as a likeness of heaven, having an unimaginable magnitude. It was between the immortal beings and those that came into being after them, like she functioned as a veil dividing mankind from the things above. That's from the On the Origin of the World in Mahabharata text. Val Valerian in a book named Matrix 2, The Abduction and Manipulation of Humans Using Advanced Technology, said, fourth density grays, the one who are primarily dealing with Whitley Strieber, are the ones who possess the technical equipment to draw energy from the human bioplasmic field. They also have the ability to extract memories and experiences from the human being. It is they who await in the light when a human being dies. The human being is then recycled into another body, and the process begins all over again. Fourth density grays are, in fact, sensation junkies. To experience human emotions is the closest they themselves ever come to the idea of feeling. He later writes, these entities have been abducting humans for many centuries. These entities view Earth as a big farm and have been essentially raising and harvesting humans and apparently abduct humans to take back to their home planet to raise there in a kind of human husbandry scenario. Part of his alien hypothesis is that compliant humans can be legally harvested for various slavery purposes. Humans are effectively considered raw materials, including to be used as nutrition and also for parasitic energy usage by aliens. In Matrix 5, Valerian writes, they want to recycle low to lower mid-level spirits into another breeding productive incarnation, hence the light and tunnel at death trap. Scanning someone they wish to recycle as they near death, the aliens discover who the person was close to has died. They project the person's image in the white light tunnel, and the image waves you in deeper. If you choose to follow, you can be trapped and sent to another incarnation of their choice. This shows the Empire does have an understanding of the spirit, but it attempts to short this out. The light and tunnel trap is a relatively new device, but one that will fail, and they now know this. Go into the light, say those who have had near-death experiences. They are the salespersons chosen to advertise this alien venture. Never enter that light. Go up, left, back, right, or anywhere but there. The mass media exposure of the light and tunnel traps seen in the film Ghost, where the hero willingly enters the glittering trap, is to try to get people to buy the destination. There doesn't seem to be, that's the end of the quote there. So there doesn't seem to be only one set experience. I've read ones where they saw gray aliens. I've read others where they saw God or Jesus or their relatives. It seems as though they are mimicking who we want to see or to make us feel comfortable, and or maybe placing a memory implant or imprint over the experience as a screen memory. And sometimes it doesn't work, and some people who are strong-willed remember the actual alien beings. Yeah, I mean, many people get made to go back into the body, and if they didn't, the body would sit there in a coma, I believe, until physical death. Just about every one of them are told they have a mission or soul agreement to fulfill. If the spiritual forces were really in control, would they need humans to go back and finish a mission that only that person can do? To me, it is a psychological ploy to appeal to the counterfeit spirit. It seems the newly departed soul is scanned for information as his life flashes before his eyes, and they are scanned for information and make them feel comfortable so that they can be manipulated to reincarnate or return to life. Here's a near-death experiencer that said, then I emerged from the tunnel into an indescribable place of peace and tranquility. There was the most beautiful being of white light there. With the level of understanding I had at the time, I saw that he took on an image so that I could relate and feel comfortable, but that his true essence was light and love. Another near-death experiencer said, an inquiry to me as to which religious symbolic form I wanted the presence to appear in. A few options, then my image of Jesus Christ in a blue robe appeared. I'm toying with the idea that the void could be a vacuum tube and the tunnel a vortex coil that functions as a power generator of sorts that amplifies our own light and love and then is reflected back via mirrors. The Archons steal energy, and I don't really have any, and they don't have any originality, so they mimic and copy the original. They could be like magicians who use smoke and mirrors and trapdoors. And I know it sounds like a rather negative view, but somebody needs to explore this area, and that's a trick or a deception. Also in the courtroom is sometimes called the life review in NDEs. Typically, but not always, their spirit guide accompanies or even conducts this life review. They are often described as angels, etc. Sometimes this is a council of entities who conduct the life review. It says in the Pistis Sophia, if you get to this point of life review or judge or council, it will determine the levels of mysteries you have achieved, the more you know the reality of the world. So here's some near-death experience with different beings in the light. Ruth said, I was taken to special entities who looked like the usual grays, but they had lots of wrinkles on their faces. They called themselves the Council and said they were part of a group called Soul Recyclers, helping souls to reincarnate. This was by far my most profound NDE, as I could see the silver cord that attached me to my body. Virginia D. said, however, when I crossed over, I met the Council and God of the universe. I viewed my life in several events and realized that we were all one with the universe. Michael F. said, however, several questions were asked by the members of the Council asking me if I agreed to fulfill a promise of unknown nature they would allow me to return. Next thing I knew, I was standing in front of a council of 13 beings with the one in the middle twice as big as the 6 on either side of them. J.M. said I was escorted by one of the members of the council out of the clearing to an area which was quite nondescript in appearance. Pepe said, I knew it was Jesus. He was tall and strong with long dark hair and a wonderful tender smile. His eyes were unforgettable, immense, dark, so loving. Mickey P. said, but just before I entered, a voice on my mind spoke to me. I turned to look to my left, and there stood Jesus Christ. I could see his nail prints in his hands and feet. Erica P. said, Jesus was wearing a white robe with a purple sash and had flames in his eyes. His golden crown had many bright jewels in it. David said, the light itself spoke to me. I knew who it was, the God, the power that created the whole universe. Leonard said, this light loved me. This light talked to me. I asked if it was God, and it answered me, yes, I am the light. This light being, whom I did not see, knew everything about me, knew my life from beginning to end. Marie W. said, behind me was a very tall angel who told me his name was Metatron. He was cloaked in a deep ruby violet. Carmel B. said, whilst I was talking to Metatron, I was still seeing my body on Earth. I was aware of the electric shocks, 7 in total, as they happened as each jolted my spirit. Paula B. said, I fainted while reaching for a towel and saw several rings of light. The center ring had my father's face in it, and he was smiling. The outer ring had my older brother Tony in it, and the lower left, and he was happy to see me and was the same age as he was when he died. My upper left ring outside of Tony's was someone else, but I was concentrating on my father's face, who was smiling at me as if I was being silly, and I felt a great amount of love and peace at the time and wanted to go with him. I felt a pulling forward motion sort of feeling as well. Nancy D. said, as I looked again at the lights, 5 beings of light appeared to have come forward from within them. I recognized these light beings as my most cherished and beloved friends and soulmates, and knew for certain that I too am a being of light and that I was home. Robert B. said, I saw the light approach. I was enveloped by the light, and an entity that was prepared for me to prepare for me what I call my interview with a supreme being later in the light. This first being appeared to be the Virgin Mary. Only after asking, are you truly the Virgin Mary? It instantly manifested true identity. As with my initial vision of the Virgin Mary, I had the belief similar visions of angels or departed family members are buffers against the reality of what the mind is experiencing. Depending on the country or region, these buffers are predictable. Most accept them without question. That was what Robert B. said. So, what if the long tunnel is some kind of spiral vortex coil to amplify the soul's own power? And when you get to the other side of the tunnel, your own light and love are reflected back to you, but you assume it's emanating from God or them, but it's actually your own soul's power. They learn your likes and dislikes so they can use them to deceive you. As it seems to be dark and realizing this reality, there is a glaring beam of real light showing. If they have to trick us, they have no ability to hold us back. Their only power is illusion, and if you can see past that, they are powerless. They cannot create a new response on the spot if you see past the same one they always play. Like seeing the truth is the key to salvation. It's horrible and monstrous, but the truth is what it is. To stand after your body passes with already knowing has got to be immensely powerful. And those this happened to probably got out and had no ties to say. So we never hear their NDE stories. They scan your memories in the life review portion, and they play those roles you would most likely trust. That is why being sovereign and only trusting yourself for the truth also keeps you from this. A very common reason for having to return in the body is to complete a mission. The mission purely to supply more energy. He told me that it's not my time to enter into my heavenly home, but I had a mission to fulfill, and my life was going to be very hard, that I would go through many terrible experiences to the point of wanting to commit suicide. But if I committed suicide, I would not allow to come home. It's not your time, and you must go back. You haven't completed your missions and purpose in life yet. Also, the spirit world would need me to complete a mission for them while back on Earth. You must return to life. You still have 3 missions to complete. God said I needed to go back because my mission here wasn't complete. And a lot of NDEers also said they have a soul contract. So the demiurge had stolen light powers, so he's able to use them, which may be the great scheme, as he and the archons are parading around as righteous spirits of light when it's just a facade. The demiurge heavens are a copy of the real heavens, and she established each of his own offspring in conformity with this power after the pattern of the realms that are above. For by starting from the invisible world was invented. And I kind of fail to see how the system of love is supposed to teach us love and for us to learn lessons when in order to do it, heinous acts are violated against victims. Deaf, dumb, blind, paraplegics, disabled people, retarded children. And in order to show someone love, we have to cause someone untold pain and suffering. Seems like a zero-sum game to me. Granted, if this is all an illusion, virtual reality or computer simulation, then perhaps it is all just temporary and an illusion, but that is a key point in my opinion. In order to love or show compassion, someone or something must suffer and endure pain, unless they're simulated robots to teach us a lesson. The thing is, it's an illusion in that no one knows what they are doing or why. They're not aware of the reality. It's all set up and controlled. What is not an illusion is the pain we feel. You can lessen the pain with being awake to it, but it still hurts. What if the demiurge and his archons used counterfeit light and counterfeit love to manipulate us? Love can be used to manipulate people. Some tell women they love them in order to sleep with them, and some women tell men they love them to use them for money. Love is a codependency, and it makes us vulnerable, to be sure. Love is our emotional weakness. Our greatest emotion makes us the weakest. So whether for true love or its little cousin lust, it's a weakness. I know I've done stupid things when I thought I loved a female, head over heels, blinded by love. This love makes them accept anything, and still they are free will. They are so heads over heels that they will not accept things they normally would not. They are chemicals involved like Oxycontin and dopamine. Michael Newton, he's a hypnotherapist, and a lot of hypnotherapists have taken people into past lives, through regression, but he takes them into this in-between life stage, right? And in this book, Journey of Souls, he says, quote, some newly dead people see it opening up next to them right over their bodies, while others say they move high above the earth before they enter the tunnel. A subject under hypnosis describes it, quote, at first it was very bright close to the earth. Now it's a little darker because I've gone into a tunnel. It's a hollow, dim vent, and there's a small circle of light at the other end. I feel a tugging, a gentle pulling. I think I'm supposed to drift through the tunnel. And I do. It's more gray than dark now because the bright circle is expanding in front of me. It's as if I'm being summoned forward. I leave the circle and I'm out of the tunnel. There's a cloudy brightness, a light fog. I'm filtering through it. It's so still. I'm in the place of spirits. Thought. The power of thought all around me. I feel thoughts of love, companionship, empathy, and it's all combined with anticipation as if others are waiting for me. I'm not scared. When I was in the tunnel, I was more disoriented. I'm aware of thoughts reaching out to me, of caring, nurturing, and my mind seems close, and I still feel connected to Earth, but I know I'm in another space. Another subject said, I think something is pulling me to my proper level of travel and trying to relax me. I'm hearing sounds, an echo of music tingling. The waves of musical notes are so beautiful here. Another one saw his dead Uncle Charlie with his hand stretched out to me to comfort me, to lead me further into the light. He is taking me to the place I should go. No, don't go, Uncle Charlie is leaving me. Why is he going away? He stays in a different place than I do. He just came to meet me, to bring me here. Another person describes the thoughts. They are larger black orbs radiating light towards me. Thought. I'm starting to recognize them. They are sending images into my mind, thoughts about themselves, and the shapes are changing into people. It's Larry, her deceased husband. She says, I'm being pulled along by a magnet, and I just enjoy the ride. I'm riding on a wave, a beam of light. I must go with the wave bands of light. They do it all for you, the ones in control. I don't really know. I'm being pulled, and I'm supposed to go with it. Another subject mentioned the staging area, reminded him of a hub of a great wagon wheel. Another related, I am moving along in a chain of some kind. It's as if I'm weaving through a series of connecting links, a foggy maze, and then it opens up. After a while, I see nests of people like hives. I see them as bunches of moving lights, fireflies. Another soul talked about cones. Well, the cones do assist us. It's shaped to go around us, It is cylindrical, very bright. It's above and all around us. The cone is wide at the top and small at the bottom, so it fits over all of us. We can feel all our thoughts being expanded, then drawn up and returned back with more knowledge added. Dr. Newton says, I wonder if this cone is brainwashing your original thoughts. He says, we aren't brainwashed. Later on, when describing the life selection process, another client reported, some of us have to be given a push when they think we are ready again. After some more indoctrination, Mark realized he had been wrong about his abilities, and finally he went back to Earth. Dr. Newton says, indoctrination, this makes me think of coercion. It's not that way at all. Mark just discouraged He was just discouraged and needed the confidence to keep trying. And Dr. Newton writes, after souls arrive back into their soul groups, they are summoned to appear before a council of elders. While the council is not prosecutorial, they do engage in direct examination of a soul's activities before returning them to their groups. It's not unusual for my subjects to have some difficulty providing me with full details of what transpires at these hearings, and I'm sure these blocks are intentional. These guides have other entities who assist them. For what I can see, every soul group usually has one or more rather new teachers in training. Once in a while during a session with a more advanced soul, I hear references to an even higher level of soul than level 6. These entities, to whom even the masters report, are in the darkest purple range of energy. These superior beings must be getting close to the Creator. I am told these shadowy figures are elusive but highly venerated beings in the spirit world. Dr. Newton says, they all see their individual council of elders as godly. The elders are bathed in bright light, and the whole setting has an aura of divinity. The subject put it this way: when we are taken into the presence of these superior beings who exist in such a high spiritual realm, it validates our feelings about the source of creation. Here's a client that goes by S. Says, Giles has made me look upon my lives as a chess game with the earth as the board. Certain moves bring certain results, and there are no easy solutions. I plan, and then things go wrong during the game in my life. I sometimes think he lays traps for me to work through on the board. He says, this sphere is available to all souls because it represents their own physical world. In my case, it is Earth. Dr. Newton says, oh, this must be the physical dimension you told me about. He says, no, the sphere of Earth is only simulated for my use. Dr. Newton says, well, who creates the basic elements of your experiments, the primary substances of physical matter? He says, the maker, and those creating on a grander scale than me. Well, in a sense, you're creating inanimate objects such as rocks. It's more our trying to copy what we see in front of us and what we know. I'm getting into plants, but I can't do them yet. And you start small, and Dr. Newton says, and you start small, experimenting until you get better. Yes, that's it. We copy things and compare them against the originals so we can make larger models. He says, do you personally create suns in our universe? He says, a full-scale sun, oh no, that's way over my head and requires the power of many. I generate only on a small scale. Dr. Newton says, and yet you are the spiritual teacher for all 9. He says, I prefer to call myself a watcher. 3 in my company are also watchers. Dr. Newton says, if the source represents all the spirit world, how does this mental place differ from physical universes with stars, planets, and living things? It says, universes are created to live and die for the use of the source. The place of spirits is the source. So you get all these great quotes from the book Journey of Souls, which a lot of people in the New Age community take. It was my favorite book for years and years and years until I started seeing some of the stuff that was in it,
Incredible stuff, man. It's it's mind-bending. I guess taking it out of myself, looking at these beings, I guess humans, in the most part, we're very emotional, aren't we? And we're at our core or nature, we're loving, aren't we? And I
think that's by design. Who created our physical bodies?
It's crazy. As you stated, these greys, they're sociopathic in their nature. Right. I guess looking at us in most part, as I said, we're so easy to manipulate if we are essentially at our core loving because we're trusting. And for these creatures and their soul harvesting activities and the ability to manipulate us on such a deep level, it's become a game to them. I guess you're right. It is a game and so easy for them to do.
That's the perfect segue into what I want to talk about next.
They keep working out better ways, don't they, Wayne, to keep us.
That's the thing. They don't lose their memory. Our memories get wiped when we come back.
And we come back and we forget everything, But if someone's died and they've passed over into these different realms, to show them dead relatives, to lead them into that light, to reincarnate into another episode, and in order to feed on us, that's emotionless, isn't it? It's sterile. It shows that these they're indifferent. They just don't have emotions like us.
They don't have emotions. They don't have feelings.
Yeah, But then I look at humans, and as you said, I look at humans and look how we treat animals. Look how we treat cattle. Right. Look at what we're in pain and that we inflict on animals. Look in China where they kill the dogs.
Way they treat us. I mean, from
we're doing it. We're doing the same thing, and that's what's worrying me. Are we becoming them?
Right.
You know, that's what's a real worry. I mean, we're not. But it's just the bulk of this humanity seems to be turning into this entity that's controlled us for so long.
If you look at the cyborg, this transhumanism movement in the science, I mean, we're merging with machines. So yeah, we're losing emotion maybe.
It seems that whatever this is, it needs to strip us down on an emotional level.
And they're pushing us in that direction.
Yeah, and merge us with machine. They need to strip away, not so much the soul yet, but strip away our dignity, our morals, our compassion for others. The golden rule, the good law, the law of man that should be in place, where we're good to each other. They've got to get rid of all of that and bring us down and strip us down to such a low level, base level, where we just don't care anymore. And then that sort of merging can start to take place, which seems to be happening now. And people are losing that good side of them, aren't they? And they're just staring into phones all day, and they just don't care about what happens. But there is a lot of terrible cruelty on the planet, not just to animals but to humans through war. It's this constant war, and when the war fades away and there's not many, they start another one and another one and another one, and you have to sort of get to
they
the
divide
point
and
where
conquer.
you ask, what are all these wars for? What's really going on here?
They're sacrifices.
Sacrifices. That's what I heard about.
Look at the Ozzy Osbourne Black Sabbath song "War Pigs," and they talk about the generals in black mass. I mean, it's just a big blood sacrifice. And they divide and conquer. They're on both sides. They control both sides, and they get them to fight each other. And
there was a book written on 9/11 being a ritualistic sacrifice. And you look at 9/11 and the numbers. It's very deep to go into all that, but the world wars and everything. There's a lot of control and taking of oil and power and instability and taking. But you look at the bloodletting, and as Garth was talking about before, in the old days when they used to come in and hold the symbols up on the horses, when the Conan the Barbarian and stuff, they would come in and hold these symbols up when they were slashing everybody to pieces, and maybe that energy was being funneled through the symbols that they were holding up. So, and as you've said, we see it all in the movies with the Lady Gaga and all the music awards and everything. They're doing all the signs and the symbols and holding everything up. It's always all about that, isn't it? So.
Yeah, Lady Gaga was in one of the award shows. Didn't they do it with Elton John? She was bathed in blood. It was like almost a satanic ritual. Yeah,
she's got a new clip. I don't know if you've seen it. People can go on YouTube. It's a clip for her perfume ad. It's a perfume commercial, and it's a really satanic sort of dark clip. It's supposed to be about how she sees fame, but it's the whole clip's filled with this black goo. Like this black liquid sludge that's everywhere, and that's a lot of sexual stuff.
Archon beings,
we won't go into it today, but we hear about this black sludge that's coming from these chemtrails, this sort of technology that may be sort of mirroring our minds with these archons. It seems that now they're going in for the kill almost, that they're turning us into them, Wayne, which is a real worry, and we need to get out of this.
That's a good point. Well, you were mentioning human beings and how easy we are to manipulate and all that. And in college, I took a philosophy course on logic, and there's all these kinds of fallacies that people use in arguments, such as like appeal to authority, appeal to pity, appeal to popularity, appeal to consequence. There's other tactics like flattery, and there's red herring, straw man arguments, post hoc fallacies, and circular reasoning. But if you look at the elements of the near-death experience, and then you pay attention to some of these manipulations, there's a book named Human Nature by Stephen Gislason, and it lists innate human behaviors that are used to manipulate and control. And there are common tendencies in the conduct of transactions. For example, that pragmatic students of human behavior use to manipulate and control others. One is reciprocation, which is a sense of obligation to repay a perceived debt. So I was in a dark place, a light appeared, and it was Jesus or whoever, and they saved me. Another is concession, which is a request becomes more attractive when preceded by a more demanding request. So shown disaster and then a peaceful earth that they are needed for. Another thing in almost all near-death experiences, they start out in either a void or a place of darkness, and then they're there for a while. And they see this light. Well, isn't that going to be attractive when you're started out in a place of darkness? Okay, and then another one is consistency. There's a tendency to act or appear to act consistently. So humans will persist even if demands escalate. So an entity says they are this or that, but humans never seem to really questioning it. And then mimesis and endorsement. Humans copy others and prefer to copy the behavior displayed by other humans with prestige or authority. The tendency is to copy others' behavior and increases with uncertainty. So like I got in a long line with all the other souls waiting to see God. Another is affiliation with others is a crucial survival strategy. When humans like the appearance and behavior of the requester, they are more likely to comply with the request. So as I approached the light, I saw my grandpa and uncle waiting for me. You have one of authority. There's a strong tendency to seek, admire, and obey leaders. The attachment to a leader is often strong and irrational. Leaders have power beyond their competence and expertise. So like the man with the white beard was God. His light was the brightest, and he talked to me. I mean, that's all religions, and it's all about authority, right? These authority figures. And then the last one is scarcity. So objects and opportunities appear more valuable when they are scarce. So like I had to go back and complete my special mission. And then Robert Greene has this book called the 48 Laws of Power. And you never put too much trust in friends. And of course, these aliens pose as a friend, a lover, a family. You conceal your intentions. Obviously, the aliens are concealed in or behind the light sometimes. Reputation, guard it with your life. So these near-death experiencers have all these glowing reviews. Court attention at all costs. So the light gets attention as attractive due to the darkness or initial void. Make others come to you. Use bait if possible. Well, the near-death experiencers always come to them, and the light is the bait, maybe. You keep people dependent on you. So, like, you use a guilt trip to get them to reincarnate. Generosity to disarm victims. So you get angels cheering in a stadium, for you. It's like flattery. Here's a big one. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. So the friend is just like this loving being that loves you, right? And then the spy is like the counterfeit spirit that's and then you keep others in suspended terror. So you got this judgment scenario with the prospect of hell, hanging overhead. You cultivate an air of unpredictability. So a light appears as all these different figures. It's unpredictable. You protect yourself. So if you can gain gnosis and reduce your guilt, then you're protecting yourself. Know who you're dealing with. Of course, these archons, it's all about illusion and deception, so if you know that, it helps. You play a sucker, seem dumber than you are. You keep your hands clean. So you should live a holy life and be free of guilt. So plan all the way to the end. So you should have all these different contingency plans, as to what happens. Discover weakness. Well, archons are predictable. They're arrogant. They have to use illusion. So he's got all these, and then he's got another book called The Art of Seduction, and there's a whole bunch of ones, and I don't know if we should go through them all, but it's the same type of deal. The way that they manipulate is there's like 23 or 24 of those. But
it's built into the system, isn't it, Wayne, as well, on this planet? As soon as you start to question authority or make up your own mind, people don't like you, and they don't like you at your job, or they make it hard for you to do things. When you start seeing it for what it really is. So it's embedded into the system. It's as well, and it's so negative. That's what it is. When you want to become
let me go
more
over
positive,
these real quick. I mean, we're just started at the 2-hour mark. I think this is kind of important because that's what the game's all about. They're manipulating us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So in The Art of Seduction, the first one is like choose the right victim. Everything depends on the target of your seduction. Study your prey thoroughly and choose only those who will prove susceptible to your charms. The right victims are those with whom you can fill a void. You see something exotic. So 2 is create a false sense of security. Approach indirectly. If you're too direct early on, you risk stirring up a resistance. Lull the target into feeling secure, then strike. I'm kind of going through these quick. But 3, send mixed signals. Once people are aware of your presence and perhaps vaguely intrigued, you need to stir their interest before it settles on someone else. Draw them into your circle. 4 is appear to be an object of desire. Create triangles. Few are drawn to the person whom others avoid or neglect. 5, create a need. Stir anxiety and discontent. 6, you master the art of insinuation. So they're like insinuating that they're God sometimes, 7 is enter their spirit. Most people are locked in their own worlds, making them stubborn and hard to persuade. The way to lure them out of their shell and set up your seduction is to enter their spirit. 8, create temptation. Lure the target deep into your seduction by creating the proper temptation, a glimpse of the pleasures to come. As the serpent tempted Eve with the promise of forbidden knowledge, you must awaken a desire in your targets that they cannot control. Find the weakness of them, that the fantasy is yet to be realized, and hint that you can lead them toward it. 9, keep them in suspense. So what comes next? So they're like in this place of void or darkness, and they're wondering what's going to happen, right? So then they see this light. You're always one step ahead of them and in control. 10, use the demonic power of words to sow confusion. It's hard to make people listen. They are consumed with their own thoughts and desires and have little. The trick is to making them listen is say what they want to hear. 11, pay attention to detail. You must learn to distract your victims with a myriad of pleasant little rituals, thoughtful gifts tailored just for them, clothes and adornments designed to please them, gestures that show the time and attention you are paying to them. 12, poeticize your presence. You know, got a lot of these flowery things in biblical texts and stuff. Disarm through strategic weaknesses and vulnerability. 14, confuse desire and reality, the perfect illusion. If you can create the illusion that through you they can live out their dreams, you will have them at your mercy. Aim at secret wishes and dreams. Then the victims. 15. An isolated person is weak by slowly isolating your victim. Lure the seduced into your lair where nothing is familiar. Then prove yourself. Most people want to be seduced. 17, effective regression. 18, stir up the transgression and taboo. Like take them farther than they imagine. The shared feeling of guilt and complicity will create a powerful bond. 19, use spiritual lures. I guess that goes without saying. 20, mix pleasure with pain. So you got, heaven and hell. 21, give them the space to fall. The pursuers pursue. 22, use physical lures. 23, the last one, master the art of the bold move. Don't give the victim time to consider the consequences. So, I guess we comprise a lot of that, right, as humans?
There's a lot there, man. A lot for people to go through. That's for sure.
It is.
So
the last section is solutions. I do have some. So
that's always good.
Yeah. And, I've got like over a dozen on my website, but instead of listing them all, I'd like to go over like the one I think is the most promising.
Yeah. Very important.
Yeah, but first let me say this. My best guess is that our souls are all divine and that we're bored up in heaven, so we play board games like the game of life. And in this game or bad dream, the plot seems to be there are entities, aliens who have trapped us in a matrix or prison and are feeding off our... it's mixed for a great movie, right? You seem like The Island and some of these movies. But they feed off our energy emotions, extreme negative and positive emotions. It's a duality sort of like how electricity flows from a negative to a positive pole, and they can somehow feed off that energy. But look at it this way. The game involves everything on Earth right now, good and bad. All in the game think it's all there is. Mostly every theology, religion, organization are all part of the game. Anything with hierarchy is part of the system. Any system where you listen to another human for advice will lead you astray. Gurus, spiritual teachers, channelers, spiritualism, Dalai Lama, the Pope, on and on and on. The whole system is based off the real one. So there are four. At times it'll seem right, but it's always have a deficiency. That's why it's always necessary to renounce everything. To see it as the game it is reduces any serious effects it has on you. You can still suffer and still have a hard time, but you no longer have desire for any of it. You don't get jealous because you know that other people may have all these material things. They may temporarily seem happy, but in the end, they're just being distracted by things that are not real, and it prevents them from seeing what is going on. The biggest one for me is I place myself down every path I could think of. None of them ended with happiness or completion. It's all material and temporary. This world is predicated upon a false design. It seems like it's set up to fail. Without only a few are beautiful, talented, wealthy. That's the riddle of inequality. It seems unfair. I think there's inherent problems with the creation of this world. We're being exploited by design. One, I think we all should be more equal. I think we all should be allowed to look the way we want to. We choose our looks, so to speak. We would all choose different appearances, but more attractive ones. Two, I think we should all be given equal talent, and these aren't my solutions, whether you want to call that intellect. Three, if we had more free will, if we even have any at all, that might be nice. I think we need a bigger planet with more resources so that we wouldn't have to compete, which leads to war, jealousy, killing. I think telepathy and empathy might be desirable to avoid secrecy, lies, deception, and evil doing. I think a system where there's no money, but people did what they wanted is preferable to the one we have now. Money allows those to have power and control over others. People wouldn't have to have jobs or work just to pay for property taxes and a place to lay their heads. You have aging, death, and dis-ease. This puts us under terrible stress. And eating, we're consuming each other's energies just to survive. It seems barbaric to me. And a better system would include one where we could subsist by absorbing the light from the sun, like plants were designed, or water and energy, prana of the universe, or like these breatharians where they breathe off the air.
Yeah. Yep.
I've actually switched to a diet where I don't eat any animals or plants. Like I don't want to eat anything that was living. So I'll eat fruits and nuts and eggs and beans and dairy and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
but,
I'm pretty close to that as well.
Yeah. So all these things I mentioned, could this be a remembrance of my origins? I mean, perhaps I could not imagine a better system unless I was once without it, right? Yeah. It
seems like you're just going back to what you really are. You know what I mean? It seems like a natural thing to do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, why are people vegetarians and stuff? It's it's needs to be looked at.
We know it's wrong. It's it's subconsciously.
Yeah, as I said, like over there in China where they eat the dogs. I don't know if you saw that they have the festivals where they eat the dogs. It's absolutely horrifying, and they strip the dog's fur off them alive.
Man's the best friend,
Yeah, but they say that they inflict mega amounts of agony and pain on the animal because the adrenaline and the fear in the animal makes the meat taste better. And it's like...
You're just internalizing all that pain and anger and fear.
But they're human beings. I mean, they're people living over there, and that's what they do, and they don't
So they
have
do
any
it for
problem
the
with
taste, but they have no idea that once it's inside of them, what it does to them, right?
Yeah, that's exactly like with the cattle, that when they die in fear, they inject that adrenaline and fear into all their nerves and their body, and I think
that lowers
cancer.
our vibration.
It does, but it's interesting that you and I know this, but others don't, like Garth and I talk about that. We're all human beings, flesh and bone and blood, then why are we so different when it comes to this,
So if you had a higher vibration, you would probably be more conscious. You might even be able to go out of body easier and learn things.
Yeah, to who you really are. You're getting closer. I take it as a good thing, Wayne.
Yeah. So the hardest part is sometimes realizing it's all a game and it's fruitless, but you will see so many people suffering because they don't know it's a game. And it's the hardest part because you could make their suffering less by sharing your own knowledge, but most likely the person suffering will not be able to understand it. It's a very dire condition, and that's where I have faith. I have faith that the game will sometime be overturned, and the only fruitful joy that we can obtain in life is by helping others when we can. And those spirit guides who take people all over heaven, it's actually your enemy because it's your counterfeit spirit. It says the archons told the counterfeit spirit to pretend and be nice when the soul comes out of the body so it will follow it around. They are such evil bastards, and it gets me frustrated sometimes that we are too stupid to all figure it out. All we have is a very short time in our life to figure this out in the world while being filled with lies. If we don't figure it out, we have to do it all over again and start from zero. The demiurges had thousands and thousands of years to perfect the system, while they never have to start over and forget. That is their advantage, but ours is we are divine. It doesn't matter what they think. It matters what you think. It's a matter of accepting yourself as has been. Ask for repentance to yourself for any harm you've done to others while under the spell of ignorance. From that point on, you try your hardest to help others to the best of your ability, knowing that the drama and illusion will trick you at times and you may still make mistakes, but you see them as mistakes and not sins. You know at that point you did your best. There's no life review to make you feel guilty because no matter what they say, you know you're not guilty. You know you tried your best to see through their illusion and be the best person you can to others. If you have this, there's no guilt, there's no conviction, and they cannot control you. You think perfection can be achieved on earth? It's impossible. It's too negative. So again, you can deduce that perfection cannot be obtained while on earth. But if you know you did your best, you tread through all the crap and try to keep your head up. You have no guilt and cannot be convicted. It may be entirely true that every single manipulation they use is based on something someone feels guilty about. Carlos Castaneda, I think, says to quiet your mind and you'll see chaos intruding. This is the predator or counterfeit spirit. Instead of quiet, I use logic to defeat mine. As soon as I know it's trying, I negate its power by recognizing the source and ignoring it. It just gives up over time and really work for me. You'll find inside yourself that the you that feels like the real you, the noble you, the loving, caring you. You learn to hear the difference inside you. You commit to following that noble version of you who sees all the things that are wrong with this world. So you think people being rude to others is wrong, so therefore you try and live by the courteous to others ideal. After a short while your life transforms as you feel the power of being above it all. So now when at a store and you have to wait 15 minutes to get help, as people that could help walk by you, what do you do here? I think is important. It's a difference, or that turning point. If you use empathy to see how they are all distracted with self-needs, or maybe just don't realize you need help, so instead of getting upset, you understand and let it pass. This is the point where they can start getting you. It's the discipline and understanding to not lose your emotional cool, to not let frustration turn into anger, to not let a bad circumstance turn into depression, to allow things to happen without the desire to control the outcome. You practice this every day with every thought, and the second you feel doubt, negativity, anxiety, emotional impulses, don't allow them to keep going. Don't manifest something that is not real into a real thing by playing it over and over and over in your head. Yes, you're about to be eaten by a lion. It's very practical to feel distress, but to feel distress because you can't pay a bill does no good. I know because I used to have the same thought patterns. I would get angry in traffic. When you play these thoughts over and over, you're producing energy for them. Yeah. So if you find yourself doing it, stop all thoughts and examine the validity of it. It's a tedious but simple. As you no longer provide an easy food source to them, they will simply not be attracted anymore. Are you still subject to them trying? Yes, it will happen from the time to time. It's like if you're going in the woods in summer, when you come out, you thoroughly check yourself for ticks. They work no different. If you feel something wrong, examine it as if it's not real, and it's them trying to impulse you. When someone hurts me, I know they are holding fear, hurt, or anger, which is causing them to lash out. I logically look at it that they are projecting something they cannot deal with because they are simply too asleep. So if someone hurts me, I look at the reason why they would do that instead of internalizing the hurt, which gives the archons the ability to replay it and replay it. I think about why they did that. Bad parents, whatever. I make excuses for them and give them the benefit of the doubt. There's no fruit in any earthly action. Don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect, but I have no attachment to any material things anymore. Doesn't mean I don't like the taste of an orange, but there is nothing material that I cannot live without. I no longer have attachments to it. This started with the realization that nothing material lasts, and it's all but decomposed in a blink of an eye. I think it's healthy to still have some interest, else you'd crash your car, but no bad addictions or things you can't live without. So the exit strategy is a conundrum because if we follow the advice to either focus our intent with our willpower to go back to the pre-existent source, then we could lose our ego, soul, if we don't know what we're doing. Or we could even end up where he was with the light asking us those questions. Of course, we would say we learned all we needed to know about love and wish to go to the preeminent source, and maybe that would work. If it didn't work and we got kicked out of heaven, I wouldn't even get in that line to go meet up with the demiurge. If we had no choice, then we could refuse to reincarnate. If we choose to just hang out by ourselves in the darkness, that might get lonely and boring real quick, or maybe we could create worlds with our thoughts, but then we wouldn't just be going back down the path that the demiurge originally took. I wonder if returning to the source would cause you to lose your identity, but perhaps it would be like being part of a wave or a cheer in a football stadium, part of a larger entity but still independent. Maybe like the cells in our body have a consciousness but are also part of the larger whole, us. If we choose to return to the source, will we lose our ego or lose our soul? Now there's return as in return to the realms of source, and there's the idea of returning and reabsorbing your essence back into source. I've thought about that, and I don't think reabsorbing is truly so. The mysteries of the universe are forever lasting. Are we divine and have just forgotten that and need to realize it again, or were we divine and fell and now are not divine? That is one of the big questions there. And they try to convince us we have spiritual work to do. And so that is the crux of the matter. Do we or don't we have work to do to become perfect, pure again? I think we are divine. One of humans' biggest fears is death. When you are without gnosis, you fear death. It's the end. You only know this material world. You fear and dread death. With gnosis, realizing that the soul is eternal and only our body dies, our fear of death becomes merely not wanting to suffer. The knowledge shows there's no death and we are eternal. I no longer fear the unknown. So I don't view myself as a saint. No way view myself as evil. I'm just a good person. I've done things bad for me. I've done lots of good things. I learned through these experiences and gained knowledge. Without gnosis, I couldn't be the most righteous person. I could be the most righteous person in the world, but I would still be under the illusion. Since demiurge realms are based on the divine realms, good actions propel you higher in either one. With gnosis, I break the illusion we are trapped under, and although my actions are not always perfect, the gnosis pushes me forward to only desiring the state of perfection. Gnosis allows us to be above the archons. Gnosis allows us to be Allow someone to try and start a fight with you, and you smile and walk away. You don't let the illusion get to you. It's what we learn while in the body that gives us a defense against the archonic powers in heaven. So if you're asked what you learned or whatever about life or love, this is when you make your impassioned Mel Gibson Braveheart speech against the atrocities and illusions of this world, and how you still rose above them, how you learned you come from source and have been held captive, and that you want your freedom. Gnosis is the awareness of who you are and knowing it. You know you are a divine spark. The other half of the equation depends on how you lived your life and how you live it. You are then judged on whether your heart, soul is more gold than lead, so to speak. As Neil Young sings, I've been a miner for a heart of gold. Doesn't mean to be a saint either. We all continue to make mistakes because of where we are stuck. There may be different paths to the same place, that doorway into the real heaven, but by you being aware of what you know, you no longer can be so easily manipulated to what they want. Their foggy delusions you'll see right through. In spiritual alchemy, our more base selves are described as metal, and it ties in with alchemy, turning your lead soul into gold or a light beam. That's the alchemical practice of turning lead into gold. I wonder if we don't have some residue attached to our spirit when we die that lets us be pulled, which is why they are pumping us full of metal, chemtrails, jewelry, piercings, even heavy metal music by Metallica, Iron Maiden, Led Zeppelin, Iron Man. All the mercury fillings, aluminum and mercury in vaccines, they retard us from having greater potential connectedness to this light and create a more fearful dark energy source. The mass of an object is the amount of matter or stuff it contains. The more matter an object contains, the greater its mass. Gravitational force increases when the masses are bigger and the objects are closer. So the lighter your spirit, the faster you shoot upwards, purely by gravity within the demiurge. Even spirits are trapped by the gravity to a degree. Could the tunnel be the visuals as your soul moves by natural actions because you are moving quickly? The importance of holding no grudges is super important. Grudges and that sort of thought forms that weigh you down. There's the aspect of escaping the lower heavens. The grudges take on identities that look very similar to us and are trapped within the physical world. Addictions are also the same cloth. They feed off our fears and inject themselves into our lives. They may look like us, but they are not us. Many descriptions will say a higher level can go below their level, but it's very difficult. Someone at a lower level is not able to go above that level. There's a clear stratification that seems to occur within the demiurge heavens. Gnostic teachings repeatedly say that if you are involved with desire or one of material things, it clings material to your soul. Basically, the more selfish you are, the more this matter becomes stuck on your soul. It's true that gravity will have influence beyond this dimension, the Earth not only has a huge gravity, but apparently one that was modified to make it so strong within the demiurge's heavens as they are good. So the basis of the theory is that the purer and less material you can make your soul on Earth, the higher level you go when you die. The more material and base you allow your soul to become, the more dense it becomes and cannot go very high. So it's almost like it's also like we need to have contingency plans based on the turn of events that we encounter. So, it's like all those several if then else statements. So, you gotta be prepared for all the likelihoods, which is why working on ourselves is so important, just in case we get pulled somewhere based on our subconscious thoughts or desires. We may not be able to exist in higher realms if we harbor jealousy, grudges, or don't have pure intentions and thoughts. I think critical mass of awakening is the best way. If we keep plugging away, passing as much as we can to those who listen, there are others, and as long as we all do it, eventually the demiurge's prophecy will come true. Not because he said so, because we humans helped it happen. Even if it was only a prison planet for unrefined souls, we will be informing those who should probably not be here. We will be informing those who should probably not be here or trying to get out like us. They have weaknesses just like everything, and we just need to know what they are. I think their only power is deception, although it is powerful. We always have to see through the deception. I do think gnosis, or knowing about the illusory nature of this prison and then exercising the sovereignty of claiming our rights as a divine spark and returning of source may be a good plan, but it's also important to shred regrets and guilt and to ask forgiveness from others that we have hurt, and also forgive others so we hold no grudges, just in case we have to go before the light. It's important not to be tricked into judging ourselves. There's also the notion that if we aren't loving enough, that we can't sustain ourselves at the level of a higher plane, so we need to work on ourselves, a la spiritual alchemy, turning our lead bodies into gold. It's also the possibility that we are here on a rescue mission to save others, And the only way we can do that is to incarnate and risk the possibility of being wiped in the process. So my number one solution is to return first apocalypse of James. And the Master said, James, behold. In summary, I mean, there's the Gnostic text, the first apocalypse of James, has a good summary for how to overcome the archons, and it reads, the Master said, James, behold, I shall reveal to you the path of your redemption. Whenever you are seized and you undergo death pangs, a multitude of archons may turn on you, thinking they can capture you. And in particular, 3 of them will seize you, those who pose as toll collectors. Not only do they demand toll, but they take away souls by theft. Now, when you come under their power, one of them, who is the overseer, will say to you, who are you and where are you from? You are then to say to them, I am a child of humanity and I am from the source. He will then say to you, what sort of child are you, and to what source do you belong? You are to say to him, I am from the pre-existent source, and I am the offspring of the source. Then he will say to you, why were you sent out from the source? You are then to say to him, I came from the pre-existent one, so that I might behold those of my kind and those who are alien. He will then say to you, what are these alien beings? You are to say to him, they are not entirely alien, for they are from the fallen Sophia, the female divinity who produced them when she brought the human race down from the source, the realm of the pre-existent one. So they're not entirely alien, but they are akin. They are indeed so because she who is their matrix, Sophia Akama, is from the source. At the same time, they are alien because Sophia did not combine with her like in the source when she produced them. When he also says to you, where will you go now? You are to say to him, to the place when I came, the source. There shall I return. And if you respond in this manner, you will escape their attacks. So that's from the first apocalypse of James, from the Nag Hammadi text. So that's it. And in conclusion, I just want to say that my best guess is that our souls are all divine and that we are bored up in heaven, and so we play board games like the game of life. And so just like down here, we enjoy a good story or drama or play. So this is like a movie or soap opera that we are participating in, like as the world turns, right? And so either there's a script that is unfolding, or we are co-creators in a reality TV show like The True Man Show. We are like sleuths or detectives who have to figure out the mystery of life. And once we solve the riddle and exit or escape or wake up, we realize then the game is over. We all laugh about it and say, oh, that was a good one. I don't know. Seriously, I can't even begin to fathom why anyone would do evil or want to do evil. So the only way I can rationalize it is to say it's an illusion or dream, a holographic computer simulated virtual reality game. There needs to be a villain or a bad guy in the play, or else there's no conflict or drama, and that's not interesting. So relax. Try to have fun. Enjoy the ride. It's all just a game or a satire, a parody, a cosmic joke. The game of life, it's just a game, and games are for fun and our amusement. It's a virtual reality game on a reality TV show, a play or drama for all the world's a stage, and we are merely players. And as Game Boys, we are players playing from a game pod in an electromagnetic field or a gridiron. Games are usually either board games, card games with tricks, games where you roll a die over and over again to symbolize reincarnation, a race on a track that goes round and round, or a sports game. As eternal beings, we get bored, so that's why we play these board games. Just remember, any story, whether a movie, play, or drama, has to have drama and conflict to be interesting. I don't know when or how the script will be fulfilled, but maybe we have to be active participants in this process, or the script or program will never end, which is why I created my website, checkedbythelife.com, and I'm actively seeking out how to wake up and end this nightmare and win the game. As the main character or star, we get to be the hero when we ultimately solve the puzzle and win the game.
There you go. So we're doing this to ourselves, Wayne, if you will. It's like that old saying, we're our own worst enemy. It's like
exactly.
I guess you hear about that, like if someone's extremely religious their whole life and they believe in God and they die, then that's what they'll see because they created it. And through their experience here, that's what they're almost drawing it,
Tricked into it.
Yeah, that's a very, very, that's a twist, like the twist of it in the end of a movie, Wayne.
I've actually seen that ending quite a few times in The Prisoner, the TV show The Prisoner. At the very end, he sees himself.
We're doing this to ourselves.
Huh?
we're doing it to ourselves. It's a real twist, isn't it?
Yeah.
That it's actually us, you know. It's
All we need to do is realize it and wake up and take control.
and see it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's unbelievable stuff.
Really is.
when you just think of, you know, I'm not picking on anyone, but just you know, when you think of people's day-to-day lives, just in the cities, you know, just going through and not even breathing anymore, you know, it's not even taking the moment out just to breathe and have a think about this stuff, you know, just so entrapped into this system now. It's,
Yeah, we're on autopilot a lot of it.
pretty much your whole life, and then 10, 20, 40 years passes, and you know, it's like a blink of an eye. It's,
Well, and there's all these little diversions and traps that you can get sidetracked on, whether it's ego or, you know, you have a family, and so that takes up so much of your time, and
it does.
it's very hard to.
As you said, yeah, just being in the car and someone cuts you off and you scream and all these little things, and you know.
Still working on that one.
Yeah, well, you get. I'm impatient. That's my problem. I get impatient and about things, and you know, you have to sort of. I guess the best thing to do is when you find yourself in those situations to stop, take a breath, and almost sort of separate yourself, where you get that sort of voice that tells you, no, don't do this, don't do it that way, and you know, and things always work themselves out. But you know, you don't want to get stuck doing that all the time. It's seeing these cities now. A lot of people are getting very almost like their brains have been cooked, you know, or something. You know, like a microwave type energy. That people are getting frustrated and angry all the time. You know, I guess with their day-to-day lives.
Beaming, They probably are beaming frequencies at us, you know, with towers and.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, confuses people, and a lot of these shooters now, and you know, massacres and stuff. Some of them have said they were stalked by these type of microwave weapons, you know, telling them what to do, all this stuff. So you know, there's it sort of does worry me a bit where they're at with the technology now, you know, and where they're at. But I think you're right, and you know, in everything that you said there. I think that me personally, I think that we are divine and perfect, and I don't think that we need to find ourselves or become anything better. I think we just have to reconnect with that, and I find it funny how people travel to India and around the world to find themselves, you know, and I think that's the problem with religion.
All they got to do is go inside, right?
Yeah, religion teaches you that, and children that, you know, that this is evil and that's evil and you're not good enough, and all this sort of stuff, and you know, and kids are born very special, and I think a lot of children are born pure, and there's been tests done on that where kids were actually, they tested thousands of children and they actually remembered their afterlife experience and their previous lives and all of this, you know, but they're indoctrinated into the system and they're broken down and with this fear-based mind control. And then, of
so
course,
many children have an imaginary friend, and the parents say, "Oh no, you're just seeing things."
Yeah, it's all, yeah. You actually, a lot of kids who are very susceptible, are very, you know, I was reading that do remember their past lives and are very intelligent. The doctors are actually putting them on drugs. You know, they're on all these psycho drugs, you know, which is just crazy, because, you know.
It really is.
Yeah, it is. But, you know, this is the longest podcast that we've ever done, but it's you know, it's a lot for people to mull over and think about. Absolutely. Really.
Well, thank you.
You know, yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to come on and share my research with everyone.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope people after listening to this can sort of put into context and understand how much work you've put into all of what you just stated there. That's
and if only 10% of what I said is true, and you said you agreed with almost all of it, but I mean, if only 10% of it's true, that
it just connects with what we're doing here. But you know, as you said, yeah, even if everyone's going to be different, Wayne, you know, and then they might take parts of that and go, that's wow, I'm going to run with this, and they might not agree with some bit. You know, we're not always going to please everybody. You can't do that.
If I can help them with their worldview in any small way, then I feel good about that.
Absolutely, and
I don't expect everybody to believe everything I said, or even half of it, probably. But
no, I mean, you know, I just think we're at that stage, and I think that, I mean, who would have thought? I wouldn't have thought like 10 years ago I'd be sitting here talking about this with you. I mean, you know, and that's proof in itself that things are changing. there's a change happening, but obviously,
It really is.
It's going to be manipulated through the New Age movement and all that. But I think people are waking up to all of that now, and they're starting to trust themselves. And I think there's a mega change happening, and I think it can't be stopped. But whatever these beings that they're feeding on us, and they need fear. And I think once we take that fear away, they're going to have to go off. They're going to have to go and scoot and go somewhere else.
Find another source of food, right?
Yeah, another source of food. All it takes is us knowing. Just be conscious of it and see it. We don't have to be any better or find ourselves or anything like that. We're already perfect, That's the thing.
Just got to realize it, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, that was fantastic.
Well, thank you.
That was really great. And obviously, we can get you on again soon and to keep sort of going through things. Not as long. Obviously, this first podcast is going to be the big kahuna, but we can always just keep,
I've told you everything I know.
Yeah.
but like you said, I'm constantly researching, and in a few months or something, I might have something. But...
Yeah, there's a few things with the moon, the moon landing and the Stanley Kubrick stuff, and was it like faked and all this stuff. That's really interesting, and also some of your work. I heard you talking about Saturn. I found that interesting. You're sort of talking about how it looks like the rings of Saturn, so it's almost like a record rings, aren't they?
There's
like an
hexagonal. At the poles, there's these hexagonal, and they think from a higher dimension there's like a cube, and that might tie in with Metatron's cube. So there's a lot of stuff I haven't touched on, but
connection to the moon, and then displaying this reality to us, like a TV in itself. So,
so I mean, if anybody, and when I come on these shows, and it's tough to do, but I would like to give out my email, because then if people have some stories or some research they want to share with me. My email is WayneJBush@gmail.com. So it's also on the website, but.
As well, yeah, and that'll go with this today. And actually going to go watch the Truman Show again.
Oh, that's such a great. I mean, that's actually my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, it's so interesting because they're in the moon, aren't they? Controlling everything inside the moon base.
And the guy that wrote the screenplay I actually bought the screenplay. It's the only one I have a screenplay of. I had the Truman Show, but the writer Andrew Nicole, you should check out the movie The Host, because it shows how these parasitic entities come to Earth, and they go into the body, and it's like the characters are having these internal dialogues with the parasites, trying to. It's a pretty good movie.
I might just remind you soon, and then when you have maybe in the next couple of days, when you have a spare moment, email me the names of those good Star Trek episodes and some of those movies, and I'll just start going through and save them. And
they're on my I have a page called the movies, and
they're all in there, are they? Cool.
Text, and even some of them can play and watch the scene. So yeah.
All right, so that's trickedbythelight.com.
There's a lot of them I didn't get to, like Dark City, but trickedbythelight.com.
And what's up for you coming up? Have you got any more interviews coming up, and anything happening on the horizon? Just
not that I'm aware of. I'd like to do a YouTube documentary.
Wow.
I can show everything visually, which would be pretty amazing, but it's so much work, and I just got so much research coming. I mean, all this stuff since the last interview I did with Greg, I just learned so much since then even.
Yeah, I guess you could sort of pen a book, which.
Yeah, the only thing was, then people say, well, you're in it for the money and all that kind of stuff. And I just want to give away. I want to make all my information available for free. I don't want people to have that excuse like, well, he's trying to make money by selling a book,
Yeah, it's that negativity in humans always trying to find it.
I guess I could put it up on Lulu.com or something, and people download free, or even on my website,
I find that attitude amazing, that, people will line up, sleep outside Apple for 4 days to get an iPhone, or they'll go and line up to the cinema to pay to watch movies, or they'll buy cigarettes or alcohol. And they'll pay for all this stuff, they'll pay for all this stuff without questioning it,
I actually tried to write a novel like, the Da Vinci Code, because I think if you can make a big movie, and it can change people's consciousness. So
powerful stuff.
And, but I never did anything with it. I was afraid. I mean, who's gonna make this into a movie? They're not gonna tell everybody, the truth, right?
Yeah. Well, you've connected with others, and we've connected with you, and then that's how we do it. The mainstream media isn't going to do it. That's part of the problem. So we're just doing this as a new form of media to get the message out. I don't get paid for any of this. It's it drains my time and life away as well.
Sure.
And there's a lot of negative aspects to it. My wife doesn't want to know about it. I just mean in the way that it can be a bit negative when you're talking about some darker aspects.
A lot of people run the other way.
Some people aren't able to process it, and I understand, and stuff. But I feel like I'm able to sort of process it more now than I used to when I was younger, and try and work it out and maybe put a positive spin on it. Even all the darkness and negativity.
That's what I've tried to do. I don't know for sure that this is all a game and a big drama and play, but it really makes sense to me. So,
so maybe on some space station somewhere we have all decided to shake hands and come down to Earth, play the game.
Yeah,
like you said.
It's like some cosmic blockbuster. I don't know if you guys have Blockbuster stores over there, but you go and rent the videos and take it home and watch it. It's like, or play a game. So it's like we're in it's like, oh, that looks like an interesting game, the game of life. And I go down to Earth and I got to be like this detective and figure it all out and
like
be the hero and save the world, right?
It's like Total Recall.
Is it? Yeah.
The movie Total Recall with
where he's on Mars.
Yeah, and he goes in, plugs in. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'll have to rewatch that one.
Yeah. Well, there's so much. There's also the blonde, tall Nordic aliens as well that are supposed to be good. So we didn't get into that, but maybe another time that people see. So
I can tell you that the guy I interviewed that saw and he doesn't want to share his name because he's done it before and people. He's had 3 death threats, and so he doesn't give his name out. But he told me the email that these angels that play in like a video game that he said they're the tall Nordics, But beyond that, I don't know much about them other than maybe they're with the Pleiades and stuff.
Pleiades system, the Milky Way and all this, There could obviously be thousands of beings out there, Wayne, all over.
And I try not to get into channeled material very much. I like more like direct quotes, like from near-death experiencers or
as well. And those Gnostic writings are amazing.
Channelers can get manipulated too. There's all these predictions that never seem to come true, from the aliens. So
as well, very interesting. And
there is one positive group. It probably is the aliens or Nordics. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot.
Still don't trust any of them.
That's exactly right. A friend told me that. Yeah, we don't know what any of them want. We just have to trust ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So. Oh well, that was great, Wayne. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
It's good chatting with you today, and of course, as soon as this links up, I'll whack it through to you. You're free to share that and whatever, and hopefully we can chat again soon. I know Garth's listening, but he's not sort of plugged in with us, but he is there.
Okay.
I can see him there, but something's happened.
Hey, Garth. Talk to you guys later.
I'm pretty sure he's there. Okay.
All right.
Good to chat with you, and thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
I want to let you know how much we appreciate this, the effort. I know you must be exhausting for you, and you've come on.
I'm just appreciative that I imagine doing all this work and not having any way to share it.
That's what it's about, and we don't. There's no ego here. We don't expect anything. We just want to talk and get the information out, and this is a way for us to share your information, especially to people in Australia.
I appreciate the fact that you said I could talk about anything I wanted, and I didn't have
anything you want, my friend, whatever you are. Yeah, that's the beauty of doing podcasting now. We can do what we want without being edited or framed.
You can edit some of it if you think it's too long or whatever.
No,
I droned on and on and on in some sections.
No, every podcast is like a fingerprint, Wayne. So if I edited anything, it wouldn't be right. So that's why I put them straight up. Regardless. It's really only if a guest says something that they want out and they let me know, I'll do that.
Yeah, I was trying to piece this together the last couple of days, and as I'm reading through it, I'm realizing I'm kind of repeat. I mean, I could have easily cut down parts, and I will for the next show I do, but I wanted to make sure I got it out because you never know what's going to happen with my grandma, and illnesses can come across people, and so I'm like, okay, I need to do this now and while I can and get it out there.
Yeah, exactly, and we will do that absolutely. And so it's just your website and your email is really the best way to get you and contact you then through your email.
That's it.
Okay, that's cool.
I'm not giving out my phone number.
No, some people are on Facebook or Twitter, I guess. It's not something I ever used. I only just started using it late last year for the podcast. But we've linked up with a whole bunch of great people on there, and I think we're using the technology in a positive way, which I'm trying to push. So that can be a good thing as well. But
yeah, email's the way to get in touch with me, and I pretty much answer every single email. So.
Yeah, you're doing some great interviews, and
that's some really good people. So
yeah, you just don't know who's going to hear it. No, they contact you and you chat and you mix. It's great. That's what it's all about, Wayne. Talking and
yeah,
keep discussing.
Yeah, and thank you for all the great work you're doing, and keep it up.
All right, thanks, mate, and we'll chat again soon. And please keep in touch with us and myself through email,
mm-hmm.
and we'll talk again very, very soon.
All right, thanks, Adam.